How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
is the end. There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final
He's calling out cults and conspiracies wild, Gnostic sex cults and theories compiled. But one question's raised and it's block on the spot. No room for dissent in the world he's got. But the crowd starts to laugh and they're starting to see a whole lot of words that just don't agree. Oh, Emperor James, are you feeling the breeze? Might wanna look down, see what's caught at the knee. He's the Emperor with no clothes, strutting around like nobody knows, shouting loud, thinking he's wise, but he's bearing it all to everyone's eyes. He's the Emperor, yeah, with no disguise, slipped down by his own price. The fat is an intellectual line. Oprah's got mind control, powers divine. He's calling Saint Michael the devil in charge and telling the Catholics they got it too large. Oh, James, don't you know it's a tricky game when you're calling out folks but you're doing the same. You say it's the truth only you understand, but the crowd's got a mirror showing just where you stand. He's the Emperor with no clothes, strutting around like nobody knows, shouting loud, thinking he's wise, but he's bearing it all to everyone's eyes. He's the Emperor, yeah, with no disguise, stripped down by his own pride. Now the lights start to fade and the truth comes around. His theories unravel like threads on the ground. The court starts to giggle, the people all cheer, for the emperor's naked, the truth's finally here. She's the emperor with no clothes, strutting around like nobody knows, shouting loud, thinking he's wise, but he's bearing it all to everyone's eyes. He's the emperor, yeah, with no disguise, stripped down by his own pride. So here's to the lesson, let's give it a toast to emperors walking in nothing but boast. Join Carlin's cult and open your eyes. She's here to expose James's epic lies.
What does I don't know. This might be coded, but I'm not sure. What does a Gnostic sex cult have to do with the far left's goal? This guy named Bot is going off about this Gnostic sex cult. What that?
And so we're just not going to answer that question.
Okay, so that's I figured that. So we're just okay. That's why I figured that. Yeah.
Obsessed with lying to his audience, what crazy things can he get them to believe? He does it irresponsibly to pocket all that money from the mills for liberty. The left hates capitalism, but James won't admit it. He refuses to believe queer theory destabilizes normativity, gender binary, and the nuclear family. Change blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. He used to believe in something, what happened? Mills for liberty. Gnostic sex cult, building his own world. A Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality. He's totally lost it. What can we do but mock him relentlessly? It's not a Gnostic sex cult, James. No, it's not. Stop lying to your audience. No, it's not. It's not Gnostic change. Grab Mary Nardini, he tells us queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism. Catch up, James. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. Whoa. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's capitalism. To pocket all that money from the mills for liberty. Capitalism, but James won't admit it. He refuses to believe queer theory stabilizes normativity, gender binary, and the nuclear family. But James blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. To believe in something, what happens for liberty? Gnostic sex cult, building its own world. The Gnostic sex cult. mock him relentlessly.
Well, welcome to episode 300. We made it to 300 episodes of this show. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. I've been doing this for 300 episodes, and it's not like I wasn't streaming before that, but that's a pretty big flipping milestone. And I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of myself with sticking to it. And I'm proud of all you guys for continuing to show up. And you know what? What we do on this show is we talk about really whatever I feel like talking about, whether it is the culture war. That's actually what the cult started out as, by the way. I originally named this show The Cult because it was like a shorthand for the culture war. Or like, and I thought that was kind of funny. Also, I always get accused of having a cult. And so I was like, this is kind of a nice little double entendre. But then you think about it, we also do a lot of deep dives into the cult of the far left, which I do believe that socialism, communism is a cult. I believe the public schools are indoctrinating people into this cult, so it works for that. And now we have the cult of the woke classical liberals who are pretending to be conservatives, and we go into them too. And so it's just like it's a nice little catch-all phrase, and it's kind of fun. And we have a good time with it. Hey, okay, you in with the first super chat of the day. Happy 300. $3 for 300. Guys, let's get some, if you want to celebrate the 300th episode, help me meet my super chat goal for the day. Maybe I should make it a $300 goal. I don't know. Maybe I should make a $300 goal because we are going to be doing a little bit of a marathon stream today. We'll get to our first milestone goal and then we'll see. Victor's going to be bringing me some champagne later. I was supposed to go to the store and get champagne, but I've just been completely straight out ever since I woke up. And so I wasn't able to go to the store and get champagne. So Victor's going to go give me some later. Hey, thank you, Drew the Dragon, for the member chat. Cheers, Carlin. Congratulations on 300. Keep it up. I am going to keep it up, Drew. I am going to keep it up indeed. And we've got this is going to be a long ass show. I'm just going to warn everyone. It's going to be a long show. Because I not only have a whole bunch of queer Marxist content to watch, I've got a whole bunch of stuff, and I want to do a little bit of a queer Marxist marathon. And you know what? We're going to do something really, 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 really special today. We're going way back into the archives. Hey, thank you, Jew the Dragon, for the super sticker. Appreciate it, bro. Appreciate it. We are going way, 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 way back into the archives today for some of this queer Marxism stuff because I have so many possible things pulled up. We're obviously not going to watch all these things, but there's a whole bunch we could watch. But one of them is actually, check this out. So you guys know the Socialism Conference. The Socialism Conference is one of the biggest gatherings of radical far-left activists in the country. I went undercover at it in 2023. I recorded the president of the American Library Association saying libraries should be sites of Marxist organizing. I recorded a whole bunch of other stuff too. I did not go undercover at it last year because I didn't want to get caught and beat up, and they were pretty pissed at me for going undercover at it the year before because socialists do know what I'm doing. They do pay attention, and so I just didn't want to get beat up, so I didn't go. Maybe I will go this year. They've actually moved the Socialism Conference to be over 4th of July weekend this year, which is an interesting tactic. But years ago, the Socialism Conference videos were housed on this channel. I think this is just some guy that used to record the old socialism conferences. And you can see here, Socialism 2018, Socialism 2017. I think they've got it going back, Socialism 2015. So we've got Socialism 2014, Socialism 2013. So we literally have all of these old socialist presentations not archived on Haymarket Books' website, but archived on this random YouTube channel's website And I kind of wanted to go back and watch one of them. We don't watch a lot of old socialism, but I thought we could watch this one, The Struggle for Trans Liberation. This was 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So this was before the legalization of gay marriage. So I think it's going to be fascinating to go back and watch just like a really old school queer activist, because even though it says trans, you know this is about queer because it's at the socialism conference. And so I thought that that would be just a really fun exercise to go back and watch some old stuff. You want to go to the conference? I think you should, Trendle, and I'll teach you how to go undercover. Thank you, Sam, for the $3 super chat. I don't normally super chat, but it is a special occasion. I appreciate it. What's the best way to ask someone if they're queer or narco-commie without ringing bells? You don't ask them. Don't ask them. Listen, you're going to be able to know if someone's a queer or narco-communist by how they look, by how they talk, by the words they use. And this is something you're just going to be able to pick up as we watch queer content, honestly. It's very, very obvious to me and many of us when we're dealing with a queer or narco-communist. They usually have a weird haircut. They usually are doing some sort of gender bending thing. They always identify as some variation of they, them. They don't use they don't use she, her, or he, him pronouns because they want to exist outside of the gender binary. So there's some version of they, them, or zim, zare, or fey, fair, or whatever other neo-pronouns. They wear weird clothes. They have socialist tattoos. The tattoos are actually a big giveaway a lot of the times. They use, I mean, it's just like there's all sorts of things. And actually, this is probably a good idea for something I should write about at some point. There are a lot of different factors you can use to identify if someone is queer, and we'll definitely talk about that. So we're gonna watch that. I also have a whole bunch of other stuff pulled up. We've actually watched this one before, but I want to go through a process where I'm going back through some older content that maybe we watched like a long time ago, and I want to give it another watch because I was in a completely different place when I started watching this stuff years ago than I am now. I have a much more advanced understanding of it now, and so I want to go back and watch some content that we've watched in the past that I know is kind of crazy, but maybe I didn't realize how crazy it was at the time because I wasn't that into this stuff yet. And so that's something there. What about the ones who present as normies? They don't. Queer and narco-communists don't present as normies. Ever. That goes against their entire sense of identity. It goes against their entire being. There is no reality in which a real queer anarcho-communist is presenting as a normie that goes against they don't believe in normativity. They work outside of the capital. We have I have one guy. I actually almost picked out this presentation to watch today. I have a video of a guy talking about how he used to be a respectable lawyer, but then he wanted to work. Then he wanted to be more true to his queer identity, so he quit his corporate job and became a sex worker. Like, I have this on video. It's on the Substack. I wrote about it at the time. And so you're never, ever, ever going to find that. I also have this one. And we might watch this one second. This is 11 years ago. This is in Canada. Queerly Political, Activism, Feminism, Marxism, Queer Politics. I've got this. This is from, these are outside the United States, but I think that's okay. Queering Marxism, Trans Feminism, Queer and Trans Social Reproduction. That's from, this is from, what is this? Look at this. I think it's like this is from the University of London. This presentation here is specifically from the University of London. I don't know why it just went black right there. Here, watch this. Boom. University of London. This was 7 years ago. So we got a lot of stuff, guys. I've got some other stuff too pulled up. We're obviously not going to get through all this stuff today, but I was just doing some searching last night. And so that is what we're going to do. However, given that it's my 300th episode, can I have a point of personal privilege? Or rather, 2 points of personal privilege first? Now, my first point of personal privilege is just going to be a special one just for me. My second point of personal privilege, we're going to talk about how James Lindsay is actually engaging in Marxism. This is for second, though. We're going to do this one second. I'm going to do the other one first. But we have to talk about this because, as a tip of my hat to Stony Baloney, who's the one that came up with this idea in the first place, and he's absolutely correct, James, while accusing other people of being woke right Marxist conspirators, is actually engaging in repressive tolerance, which is a Marxist tactic. And we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to show you evidence. I'm going to show you receipts. We're going to get to that in a second. But first, I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about something weird that happened. And I have things to say, all right? So yesterday, this guy died. This guy died. I guess he goes by Big Figget on Twitter. And there was a whole uproar about people on Twitter finding out that this guy died. Now, I have no idea who this guy is. And normally, to be quite frank, I wouldn't really care who this guy is. Do you know who he is? I have no fucking idea who he is. I have no idea who he is. I never interacted with him. Never even heard of him before. Until everyone on Twitter all of a sudden is like, it's so sad that he died and he was such a good person and I never really met him or talked to him and I only DM'd with him once or twice but we followed each other on Twitter and it's so sad that he died and I'm really mourning his death. And I was like, okay. And normally I really wouldn't have anything to say about this. Normally I just honestly wouldn't talk about it and I wouldn't care at all. Except something interesting happened to me. Something interesting happened. Because on Mike Harlow's post, and Mike Harlow is, of course, an absolute fame whore clout chaser. Mike Harlow is desperate to be famous without actually doing anything. He's in with, like, the log cabin Republicans, who are a bunch of men. And some of the log cabin Republicans are okay. I'm not saying this of, like, 100% of them, because I do know some log cabin Republicans that are, like, okay, all right? So I'm not, like, we love the gays on this channel. I have no problem with gay men, okay? I love the gays, and the gays normally love me, except when they don't. So if you're on my channel, you're a gay man, you guys know that I love you. You guys know. Me and gay men have a special relationship, all right? Not that type of relationship, obviously, they're gay. But it is what it is. But when I say, like, there are a whole bunch of gay men in the log cabin Republicans who are honestly just a bunch of clout chasing whores. Honestly, and I've met these people and I've been to their events and they really don't have anything of value to offer. They just want to be famous. They want to be influencers for doing nothing. They basically want to be influencers for, like, they want to be like, we voted for Trump. Gays for Trump, guys. We voted for Trump and therefore we should be famous on the internet. That's what they want. This is what we're talking about. So Mike Harlow posted about this guy dying. And literally the only reason that I found out about this was that Psycho Frank McCormick replied. And I thought that this was just so typical, honestly, because they're all making this big deal about, it's so sad that he died and he was just a wonderful person and I DM'd him one time and he followed me on Twitter and I just am so sad and I'm in mourning and I'm wearing all black and ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, Frank McCormick replied with this screenshot. And what did he say when he replied with this screenshot? He said, I'm looking through our interactions and now I remember him. I'm going to miss him. He was so funny. What was this guy doing in this screenshot? In this screenshot, literally he said that people should be cruel to me. This is the screenshot that Frank McCormick is posting to say, you know, he was just a really funny guy and I'm just really going to miss him. I didn't really know him at all and I never talked to him and I barely remembered him, but you know, he was really funny. He said, big of you to choose an older and far more flattering picture of her than she deserves. I wouldn't have been so kind. I don't know who this guy is. I truly and sincerely have no clue who this guy is. Rational said, this guy is very big in the gay conservative circles. Oh, I figured that out. And fit the profile you described, contrarian who hated liberal gays and loved Trump gays. He was young, though. I have no idea why he died. And quite frankly, I don't care. My point is that I'm not going to pretend I'm mourning this guy when this guy was apparently running around encouraging people to harass me. And overall, I just find the whole thing with him, I find all of this outpouring of like, oh my God, I can't believe he died. I'm so sad. I find it all to be inauthentic and gross. I really do. And so what did I do? Well, I said that. I literally said that because I'm sorry. if you're gonna tell people to harass me and be cruel to me on the internet, I don't give a flying fuck if you die and everyone's pretending to be sad about your death. In fact, I'm going to use it to make a point. And I said, there's a Canadian guy who died that a lot of people seem to have not really spoken to, but they're mourning him. I never spoke to. My point is this, like, all the people mourning him, they don't actually fucking know him. They really don't know him. They've never met him. They've never spent time with him in person. They probably never had a real personal conversation with him. I mean, I'm sure some of them have fucked him because that's how the log cabin Republicans work. They all fuck each other when they're around each other. But, like, most of the people mourning him have literally never met this person, like, in real life. Most people mourning him have barely even spoken to this person, and they're running around Twitter going, oh, I can't believe it. And so I said, there's a Canadian guy who died that a lot of people who seem to have not really spoken to him are mourning. I never spoke to him either, and yet I know he encouraged people to be cruel to me online because they listened and they were cruel to me online, so you're going to have to excuse me for not mourning him. Now, was this post necessary? No, not 100% necessary. No, probably could have survived without making it. But I'm going to prove a point with this. First of all, I'm not sad he's dead. I don't know him. Never had a conversation with him. Have no idea who he is or was in real life. I have no idea if he actually contributed anything of value. He certainly never contributed anything of value to me. In fact, he did the opposite. He actually told people to be cruel to me. And so now you expect me, because he died, to mourn him? No. No, that's not going to happen. I'm not sorry, and I'm not going to pretend that I am. And furthermore, the people who are demanding that I pretend to be sad about this are literally the same people who would celebrate my death if I died. I know that. Mike Harlow, who is the person who made the original post about this, was literally involved with a group of people who had entire meetings about how they were going to harass me until I killed myself. That's not an exaggeration. That actually happened. The reason I know that happened is because people who got involved with their group defected, and they came and told me what happened to tell me how sorry they were that they were involved in the first place. But we're talking about a group of people that literally was having weekly meetings to plan how to harass me, to push me to the point of killing myself. We are talking about a group of people where if I died, they would be celebrating. We're talking about a group of people who, if anything happened to me at all, they would have a fucking party about it. You expect me to be sorry that this guy's dead? No. But even more than that, let me show you the responses to this. Let me show you. You'll have to excuse the rest of us for not caring if people are cruel to you because you're a malicious, lesser evolved primate, devoid of empathy and compassion. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. People will be nicer to you if you stop threatening them. How have I threatened them? I didn't even know these people. You're less than human. You could just have said nothing, but you're too self-obsessed that he will forever be a better human than you could ever dream of. Having a miserable life, Carlin. No luck ever cross your way again. Someone called me a cunt. You're sad, pathetic, disgusting sack of shit. Get help, you need it. The irony, the sheer audacity of a literal cloud chaser calling my friend. By the way, I actually engaged with this person. Is this here? Calling my friend as much. You wish you had 1% of his reach, brilliance, and legacy. His humor, candor, and wholesomeness brought many of us together across the globe. I think we're going to see this guy come up again because I actually had an interaction with that guy. But let me show you on another one of the replies, because I also said, the fake internet buffoonery. We only DM'd a few times, but I'll miss him so much is what makes existing online almost unbearable. It's a bunch of people who crave fame, pretending to be friends when they all really hate each other for clout. And this is true, by the way. I've been to enough events with these people where I know exactly what's going on. They're people that don't really know each other, many of whom don't actually really like each other, but they get together at these events and they take pictures for social media and they're all like, and they do all these like, oh my God, guys, we're just such good friends and we're so happy and we're having a good time. and they take it for the picture to put it on social media. They pretend to be friends when in fact they never actually had a conversation with each other. They don't even know each other. And it's so fucking gross. It's so gross. It's like, it's total inauthentic bullshit. And so finally I said, and again, maybe I didn't need to say this, but I'm making a fucking point. The world lost another clout chaser. A person who put on a pretense online for attention and validation. A person who probably had no real friends because they were all fake relationships. Maybe he'll learn from this and come back in another life and actually be a human being. And look at the responses to this. I remember meeting you in Nashville. I don't remember meeting you. This is a disappointment. I stopped listening to you because you kind of went off the rails just for attention. Be an adult and act like one. No one is going to remember you like this if this is what you offer. Do better. And so I engaged and I said, yup, okay. That was his response. I said, you sure showed me. And then he said, I'm sure that weight scale shows you up every day. So they're going into, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat. Oh my God. How many times have I heard that? Like, all of the people in your life have disowned you. Really? All the people in my life have disowned me? Okay, why am I still married then? You gonna say it thrice? Come on, girlie, say it one more time. And then I blocked him, basically. Oh, here it is. You're literally proving it right now. Maybe you didn't like that you weren't self-aware. Girl, are you challenged now or something? I believe you just said this so you can get an ounce of attention. Have you ever been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder? You want to talk about narcissistic personality disorder? You want to talk about narcissistic personality disorder? That's his pinned tweet. You want to talk about someone who has narcissistic personality disorder? He literally has a pinned tweet of himself wearing a thong. You think this is someone that I'm interested in impressing? Nah. Let's look at the other ones. You're disgusting. It's fine that you didn't like the man, but shit-talking a person right after they pass away is a particular level of heinous. Oh, watch this. I said, I bet you never spoke to him, but damn, do you feel self-righteous about it? And he said, look at this. Beyond a couple of exchanges on posts, no, we didn't really speak. So I actually have people in my replies on this admitting that they never actually talked to this person. I mean, come on. That doesn't mean I can't respect the grief of people that actually do talk to him. And I said, precisely, you're not sad, you're clout chasing, you're using the death of someone you didn't know to get attention and validation. Go eat more of your feelings and stop projecting, you fucking broken pig. You're fucking nutty, LMAO. Go eat more of your feelings, lard ass. I don't think you've warped your floors enough yet. Your entire account is clout chasing, but starting to look like gout chasing. Goddamn. Congrats on being one of the ugliest inside and out. You're obviously obese and hideous and will be forever unloved. You want to talk about me unloved? You guys fuck anything that moves. I've been married to the same person for 13 years. You also happen to be wrong about him. How dare you suggest that things are over who died? The flames of ignorance burn without pain. Beware the power. It will consume you. Fuck off, cunt. You're a generally bad human being. A young man died. Leave him alone. You are generally revolting. Literally, none of the people who are commenting on this post have ever even met this person. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. So no, I'm very sorry. No, I am not going to pretend that I'm mourning someone that openly called for people to be cruel to me and that is being mourned in a giant exercise of fucking clout chasing among the gay fucking log cabin Republicans and their like fag hag friends. I'm not going to pretend that I'm sad about this. I'm not sad about it. It's stupid. And you know what? If you tell people to be cruel to someone on the internet, don't be surprised when they don't mourn your death. I'm sorry. Like, you can cry about it all you want. I don't really care. Hey, Mr. over on Rumble with the $100 Rumble rant. Mr. I'm sorry I didn't see this earlier. Wow, that's a really nice amount. We can actually, you know what? I'm going to go up to the $300 goal. It's a 300 episode. Let's do the $300 goal. There we go. Mr. from over on Rumble says, you're ahead of your time. Forgive me. I'm still trying to fix my X account stuff. I work a lot of hours. You make my shift easier. I try to show up when I can. Best holiday to you and your family. Hey, Mr. I really do appreciate that. Best holiday to you and your family as well. I wish I could show the super chat on the screen, but Rumble doesn't integrate with StreamYard yet, so I can't. But thank you guys. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, listen, again, this is not about whether or not people are gay. I love gay men. I love gay men, and gay men love me. But it's just about, like, this whole, like, it's this whole subculture that's just, like, inauthentic. And just, like, this is one of the things I can't stand about Twitter. Have you guys seen this thing? Have you guys seen this thing where people are going on about their mutuals on Twitter? Like, if someone follows them and they follow them back, they're now considering them to be a mutual or like a friend or something like that. I'm like, you guys follow each other on an internet platform. This is not real life. Can we all hinge into reality? Yeah, it's literally fake and gay. Literally fake, literally gay. So, that's my point of personal privilege there. Kenneth, they're acting like I killed the guy. Am I required to be upset because some guy that you followed on Twitter died that I never knew and never had any interaction with? No, I'm not. Sorry. Too bad, so sad. So the gays can keep crying in my replies. I really don't care. I'm going to use it to make a point about authenticity, or lack thereof, which is exactly what this community is. It's entirely fake, it's entirely gay, and this is not about normal gay people that actually care about things. This is about this clout-chasing, fame whore, like, world in which everyone just goes to events to take pictures with each other, where they act happy and they act like they're best friends. You always assume that they're fake because none of them have real human relationships. Just the way it goes. Anyway, I want to move on. James. We're going to get into our queer Marxist marathon after this. But I've got a new article up on the Substack. It is also pinned to the very top of my Twitter. You can find it here. You can see it is pinned to the top of my Twitter. On my Twitter, Dr. Carlin B. There you go. If you guys feel like sharing this article, please feel free. But essentially, and I have to give a tip of my hat to Stony Baloney, because he's the one that came up with this idea, and we were talking about it in my group chat last night. And I was like, can I write about that idea? And he's like, sure. I was like, I'm going to do it. As it turns out, and I think this is actually a really good analysis, and again, this is Stony Baloney's analysis. It didn't come from me. It came from somewhere else. I always give credit where credit is due. I'm just the one writing about it. James Lindsay is actually engaging in Marxist tactics in this crusade that he has against the so-called woke right. It's so obvious once people point it out. He's engaging in Marcuse's repressive tolerance. That's what this is. So let's take a look at this article, and you can follow it along on the Substack. And James knows this. James knows this. James has talked ad nauseum about repressive tolerance. So how is it possible that he is not aware of what he's doing unless he's come completely unhinged from reality? So let's read. Let me make this bigger. As big as possible so you guys can see it. There we go. In the 1960s, Marxist philosopher Herbert Marcuse wrote an influential paper called Repressive Tolerance. In it, he argued that society would be that society should be intolerant of ideas they oppose his vision of a just and equitable world. Ironically, James Lindsay, a critic, in quotes, of Marxist tactics, has adopted this very framework to silence right-wing critics of Zionism. Through his application of repressive tolerance, Lindsay has created a framework where dissenting ideas are discredited, voices are silenced, and debate is stifled. What is repressive tolerance? Essentially, Marx's argument can be summed up like this. People who agree with my view of the world have good ideas and are always right. Their ideas should be openly discussed, encouraged, and amplified in polite society. People who disagree with my view of the world have bad ideas and are always wrong. Their ideas should be suppressed, excluded from public discourse, and never openly discussed in polite society. Marcuse identified fascism, free market capitalism, and ideas that uphold traditional societal norms as ideologies that deserve repression. For him, it wasn't just about outright censorship, it was about leveraging psychological controls, cultural influences, and societal norms to marginalize and demonize anyone who advanced ideas outside of the acceptable paradigm. Marcuse believed that allowing harmful repressive ideas to spread unchecked would reinforce the status quo and prevent progress towards equality or the Marxist utopia. As a result, he called for active measures to ensure such ideas did not gain traction or influence. Ironically, James Lindsay is implementing this tactic in his war against the so-called woke right. Today, former leftist critic James Lindsay is adopting Herbert Marcuse's philosophy of repressive tolerance to demonize and exclude any right-wing commentators who are critical of Zionism. Lindsay paints Marcuse's tactics by labeling anti-Zionist voices as Marxists or extremists, effectively positioning them as threats to classical liberalism. This deliberate mischaracterization aligns with Marcuse's strategy of controlling the discourse by demonizing opposing views. So I want to make sure this is clear to people. What James is doing, and we've watched him do it, we have watched multiple episodes of him doing this now. What he's doing is saying, if you are not a classical liberal and you are not a Zionist, you are on the woke right. He's trying to conflate classical liberalism and Zionism and making them inseparable. Does everyone understand that? This approach seems tied to his organization, New Discourses, which has close ties to Israel. We'll learn more about that in a second. For weeks, Lindsay has targeted various right-wing figures, such as Candace Owens and Christian nationalists, using tactics to stifle debate in his crusade against the woke right. He's repeatedly discussed the concepts across various platforms, appearing on at least a dozen podcasts to elaborate on it. One notable example is his episode on trigonometry titled, "What is the Woke Right?" And you can find the link there if you haven't seen it. Generally speaking, James Lindsay seems to use two main criteria to determine if someone belongs to the woke right. They are not classical liberals and instead align with a more right-leaning political philosophy. They are anti-Zionist and prioritize the United States over support of Israel. In this, Lindsay is attempting to link the idea of classical liberalism with pro-Zionism, making a critique of one the same as a critique of both. This is a tactic to protect Zionism by rebranding any opposition to it as fringe or extremist. Think of when the left says all white people are racist. It's the same idea, using labels to control people to get them to shut up. Over the past few weeks, Lindsay has labeled dozens of influencers as part of the woke right and engaged in online feuds with many of them. One notable example is Candace Owens, and Candace Owens is saying here, everyone knows the woke right are the people that built their careers off of free speech and the marketplace of ideas, but resort to ad hominem attacks and calls for censorship on the topic of Israel. James says this is proof that Candace is part of the woke right. Recently, Candace Owens interviewed an American veteran who served on the USS Liberty. The veteran shared a first-hand account of the ship being attacked by Israel, with the incident later covered up by the U.S. government to protect what they call our greatest ally. The interview included evidence to support these claims. James Lindsay immediately responded with criticism, labeling the discussions as both anti-Israel and anti-American. And by the way, guys, we are going to watch this interview tomorrow. I really do want to watch it. I'm not a big Candace Owens fan, to be honest, but this interview actually looks really good, and the preview I saw of it looked really, really good. And so I actually do want to watch that. We're going to do that tomorrow for happy hour. But basically, Elijah Schaefer tweeted a clip from the interview, and James said, Candace Owens and her Echo Amplification Network, some of whom are dumb enough to work for free, unlike Candace, want you to constantly hear anti-Israel and anti-American messaging so they can beat the drum day in and day out, so you hear their framing first. Are you tired of it? And by the way, I could go through James, I could provide so many examples of tweets of James doing this stuff. I didn't have time to put all the documentation together today, but I could provide probably hundreds of tweets at this point of James doing similar stuff like this if I wanted to. This is a clear example of repressive tolerance. James Lindsay has declared Candace Owens a bad person simply because she holds ideas he disagrees with. As a result, he argues that all of her ideas should be dismissed and repressed, even when they are supported by objective, unbiased evidence. He's employing psychological tactics and cultural influences, such as attacking her on podcasts to dissuade others from considering her perspective. Moreover, this appears to be motivated by his financial ties to Israel. Michael O'Fallon, who funds Lindsay's new discourses, is a prominent Christian dispensationalist. That means he believes that Israel and the Jewish people deserve special protections and considerations. This includes support like granting them land, involving Americans in their conflicts to fight their wars for them, and prioritizing financial aid to Israel over funding projects that directly benefit Americans. O'Fallon's theological and political priorities, especially regarding Israel, seem to align closely with Lindsay's recent pivot. Public records and O'Fallon's own statements reveal his dedication to promoting Zionism and influencing conservative discourse in the United States. And you can see here, Michael O'Fallon is on the founding documents of New Discourses, along with Peter Boghossian, by the way. That's interesting. Michael O'Fallon saying, in the cheapest ad hominem argumentation ties me. Okay, this is absolutely disgusting, particularly since I have just returned from a flight from Tel Aviv after meeting with the government of Israel for the support of the sovereign nation of Israel. The positions I and others hold on safe, vetted, legal, purposeful immigration, blah, 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 blah. Michael O'Fallon is having meetings with the government of Israel. This was in 2019. Michael O'Fallon is literally meeting with the government of Israel. Why? Why? Something doesn't add up. I've spent quite a bit of time in Israel. I've personally driven all over Israel. Israel has the best intelligence agencies in the world. Michael O'Fallon loves Israel. I'm aware of what's been reported. I'm just trying to think through things from the same lens I think through everything. I spent months in Israel. I do a lot of business with Israel. Now it's starting to make sense, doesn't it? James Lindsay is Michael O'Fallon's attack dog. Lindsay doesn't have a problem with Christians. He has a problem with Christians who support an American identity over supporting Israel. In Lindsay's application of repressive tolerance, all pro-Zionist individuals are seen as good, and their ideas are amplified, while anti-Zionists are labeled as bad, with their ideas suppressed. To shut down debate, Lindsay often labels anti-Zionist ideas as Marxist, a tactic designed to discredit and silence dissent. Ironically, it is Lindsay himself who is employing the Marxist tactic of repressive tolerance. For example, he recently attempted to discredit Christian nationalists by claiming he rewrote several pages of the Communist Manifesto, swapped a few words, and then successfully published it in what he called a flagship Christian nationalist publication. This, Lindsay argued, proved that Christian nationalists, the group he dislikes because of their support for American identity, are part of the woke right. You can see here, the flagship Christian nationalist woke right publication, The American Reformer. However, when people compared the article James Lindsay published to the Communist Manifesto, they discovered he had rewritten about 90% of the document, retaining only the rhetorical structure. This means the ideas published in the American Reformer weren't Marxist at all, undermining Lindsay's claim. And you can see here, there's evidence of this. We've covered it on the channel. He was exposed for this. He was dragged for this. One especially weird aspect of this is that the American Reformer is not a flagship publication, as Lindsay asserted. Many people had never heard of it and were curious about why he selected the American Reformer. So we have to give a shout out to Mizakan, because he figured it out. Why? And this was the question. Why is James targeting the American Reformer? Why is James targeting the American Reformer? Well, it turns out, and you can see this full thing on the Substack, it turns out the American Reformer is run by someone named Nate Fisher. Nate Fisher has been in a feud with James Lindsay for like years. for years. And you can see here, Michael O'Fallon is complaining about Nate Fisher. This entire post is complaining about Nate Fisher. And in the bottom of the post, he says, in any case, the co-founder of American Reformer has entered the discussions around reformed evangelicalism, blah, 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 blah. They targeted the American Reformer to embarrass Nate Fisher because James Lindsay and Michael O'Fallon don't like Nate Fisher. That's why they did it. Full stop. The stunt backfired, with James Lindsay being called out by many prominent influencers for his dishonest tactics. Despite the backlash, he continues his podcast tour, including with Michael Malice yesterday, which was disappointing. But, you know, you can't expect Michael Malice to go against all his Jewish friends, can ya? He continues his podcast tour, attempting to rehabilitate his image after the disaster. Pro-Zionist influencers have eagerly stepped up in support of him, offering softball questions like Michael Malice did, and avoiding any meaningful pushback. What those calling him out missed, however, is that Lindsay is himself employing Marxist strategies in his approach. This is James Lindsay's version of repressive tolerance, a concept he knows well due to his extensive study of Herbert Marcuse. As Lindsay often says, the issue is never the issue. In this case, he is attempting to silence all critique of Zionism in Israel by reframing it as opposition to classical liberalism or support of Marxism. Ultimately, Lindsay's goal seems clear: to stifle discussions of ideas that challenge him to protect his financial interests tied to Michael O'Fallon. James Lindsay's actions highlight a deep irony. The man who built his reputation critiquing Marxist strategies is now employing those same tactics to suppress dissent and silence voices he disagrees with. By leveraging Marcuse's concept of repressive tolerance, Lindsay has become what he once critiqued, creating a framework where criticism of Zionism is framed as an attack on classical liberalism or an endorsement of Marxism, effectively shutting down meaningful discussions. The issue isn't whether someone supports or opposes Zionism. It's the deliberate effort to use labels, cultural influence, and psychological manipulation to stifle debate and control the narrative. Lindsay's shift from critiquing the left to targeting the quote-unquote woke right suggests his motivations may be less about principles and more about financial and ideological ties to Michael O'Fallon and his dispensationalist agenda. This isn't just about Lindsay. It's about the dangers of ideological gatekeeping. When debate is suppressed and dissenting ideas are mischaracterized, it stifles the open exchange of ideas that classical liberalism relies on. The question for readers is this: can we truly defend free discourse if we tolerate these tactics, no matter which side employs them? In the end, the real danger is not in disagreeing with Lindsay's views, but in the broader implication of his tactics. When discourse becomes dominated by the suppression of opposing ideas rather than engaging with them, we lose the ability to explore genuine truth. There is a risk worth examining, not just for those on the right or the left, but for anyone who values open, honest debate. So that's it, guys. James Lindsay is using repressive tolerance. And that's what we need to say. He is actually the one using Marxist tactics. And he knows these tactics better than anyone. And I don't understand a world in which James doesn't know what he's doing. He has financial ties to the Israeli government through Michael O'Fallon, his business, his livelihood, his brand. It literally depends on it. We have the receipts to prove it in their own words. This is all publicly available information. This is what he's doing. So he's trying to silence people who disagree with him. It couldn't be more clear. And now you know. Now you know. If people back him up, it's because they have ulterior motives. This has nothing to do with fighting the left. This has nothing to do with fighting the left. And by the way, is there anyone more vindicated than me? Is there anyone more vindicated than me? I'm sorry. I've been screaming about this for over a year and a half. I have been dragged through the mud. I've been told I have a personality disorder. They've said I was trying to fuck James, which I never was, and went through my entire DM history with him just to show there was never so much as a fucking winky face or a heart or anything like that. There's never an invitation to drinks, never flirting, nothing like that. You can go watch the video on the channel. I literally go through my entire DM history, but James spent years spreading a fucking rumor about me. Has anyone ever been more vindicated? Nah, I feel pretty good about this one. All right, let's get, yeah, I was right. All right, guys. Well, if you want to support the work I'm doing, head over to Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, where I'm the only person on the internet writing stuff like this that you can find. And if you want to support me, sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I really do appreciate it. If you want to sign up as a founding member on the Substack, you get to claim a free t-shirt. A founding member is $250 a year. I'm going to send you a free t-shirt in the Unwoke Art store if you are a founding member. You can head over to this article and learn more information about that. And guys, remember, I am 100% funded by you. I will never take money from Israel. I will never take money from Russia. I will never take money from any foreign government. Why? Because I'm 100% funded by people like you. My only job, I have no political interests. I have no political allegiances. I will not work with any of these organizations. My only job is to show up and to tell you the truth and to show you the receipts, and then you guys get to decide for yourself what you think. And with that, we're going to get into the receipts. I saw that James was doing a podcast about it today. I honestly just really didn't want to watch it. I had other shit to do, honestly. I heard they were talking about me in the chat, though. So that's interesting. Again, I'm living rent free in their head. I wasn't even watching the damn podcast. People are talking about me in the chat. That just shows I'm winning. Obviously. All right, guys, let's get into it. We're going to start our Queer Marxism marathon. We're only an hour into the stream, so why not start our actual stream? The first thing we're going to watch... First of all, is there anyone in the chat who's never watched Queer Marxism with me? Is there anyone in the chat who's never watched Socialism or Queer Marxism with me, or you're relatively new? Let me know. I'm just curious. I would love it if there were new people here. If there's not, that's fine too. We're going to be starting with an old school presentation. We're going back to the days of yore. This is a presentation from the Socialism Conference from how long ago? 10 years ago. This is before gay marriage was legalized. This is when they were still kind of conflating queer and trans, which they still do every once in a while, but not as much as they used to. And we're going to go back and we're going to watch, what were these people saying prior to gay marriage being legalized? What were these people saying in the early 2010s? Pre-mass, there's a lot of... So this is like entry level. This is when queer was really starting to pick up, okay? And so let's go back and see what they were saying. And we got some other stuff where we got pulled up too. And we can go back and get a little bit of history on how all this bullshit happened.
Welcome, everybody, to the last session this morning for the Socialism 2014 conference. So this morning's session is the fight for transgender liberation, a conversation with CC McDonald.
Let's welcome Purple Melbourne to the chat. I know I saw you earlier in the chat, Purple Melbourne. Welcome to our crazy little family. Guys, if you're new, and especially for you, Purple Melbourne, if you guys have questions about what the language means or what they're talking about, please feel free to chat in. I will do my best to break down the language, break down the concepts. It can be, when you first start watching socialism, it can be a little bit overwhelming and hard to understand the language. So it's not you, it's them. You're learning a different language here, and please keep that in mind. This is not a deficiency on your part. It's just that you're learning a new language. So if you have questions, even if they seem like dumb questions, please make sure to ask them in the chat. I am monitoring the chat on YouTube and on Rumble. So you got, and on Twitter too, if people are watching on X. So please feel free to interject at any time.
I'm sure many of you here are familiar with Cece's case, but for those who aren't, Cece was incarcerated for the quote-unquote crime of defending herself against a racist, transphobic hate crime. In response to that, she became a fighter for trans liberation, for racial justice, and prison abolition. As horrific as Cece's story is, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes, the sad reality is that it's not uncommon at all. Rather, it is the norm for trans people in this country every single day.
Every day, guys. Every day.
Trans people make up 56%. Sorry, trans women make up 56%.
Hang on. Will we watch James's latest podcast together at some point? I don't know, Kyle. I don't know. Maybe. Honestly, I'm so exhausted with James stuff. I don't know if I can sit through it, but maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Of hate crime murders against the LGBT community. 76% of those murdered are black trans women. Rather than the criminal justice system protecting and serving those most oppressed and vulnerable in our society, they regularly target, harass, brutalize, and incarcerate the most oppressed. 18% of black trans women have been incarcerated at one point in time in their life. And in the greatest democracy in the world, trans people still remain second-class citizens under the law, with discrimination codified. What does make Cece's story unique, however, is the fact that we know about it. And we know about it because she fought back. That night, Cece's attackers, the criminal justice system, the prosecutors, the police, they wanted to make her invisible. They wanted to erase her from this earth like they do to trans people and queer people all the time. But Cece stood up and said no. The criminal justice system wanted to make it crystal clear that it's only racist vigilantes and police officers with a badge and a gun who have the right to quote unquote stand their ground when it involves murdering black and brown youth, but that it does not apply to the oppressed for whom they victimize. And again, Cece said no. While much of the mainstream lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender organizations refuse to talk about Cece's case.
No. We're not talking about. We've moved on from James. So what we're watching is a presentation from the Socialism Conference 10 years ago, where they were talking about trans liberation, which really means queer liberation. Queer is a far left political ideology. It has nothing to do with being trans or gay, which I know can be confusing because they're calling it trans liberation. But that's just a reflection of the time of this, because they used to conflate the two terms. So we're kind of going back into the archives and watching some older queer Marxist content to see the historical roots of it, if nothing else. But this has nothing to do with James. We've moved on.
Refuse to print a word about it, donate a penny to her cause, or speak out. I'm proud to say that we in the ISO have supported the struggle for Cece's freedom since day one. And the reason is because we as socialists stand on the side of the oppressed against this brutal and unjust system, always. So with that, please give a warm welcome to Cece McDonald. That's how we socialists roll. All right, Cece, again, thank you so much for coming. So I guess why don't we start with the attack itself? If you had the opportunity to tell people what happened that night and what you went through, how would you describe it?
Well, of course, it wasn't anything fun.
Oh God, the voice is gonna kill me. Oh God.
That night, me and my boyfriend and my cousin and some friends, we decided to walk to a store. A big part of this story that a lot of people don't know about is that prior, literally a couple of minutes prior to the incident, me and my friends got stopped by the police. And, of a complaint of noise, which was crazy because it's like it's Friday and the bars are letting out. I'm pretty sure there's noise everywhere, but it's just very convenient that you had to stop the only black group, that's walking to the store at 12 a.m. because of your suspicion of, foul play or, So it was, that aspect of the story, now that people know, kind of makes the whole situation even more complex. Because where were you just a couple of minutes later when these group of white people was busting my head open? You know what I'm saying? Like, how is it, convenient for them to, only...
Oh, I'm not going to display that on the screen, Rationalist, but I'm well aware. I will never go on that website. I will never look at it, and I'm well aware, and there's nothing I can do about it. So we don't talk about that website. We don't name the website. People are gonna make up all sorts of crazy shit. And you know what? It's like, I have a band of unhinged lunatics that all have accounts on that website, and they all add crazy shit to that website all the time. And they can see then fucking cope because they're anonymous losers on the internet, and we ignore them, and we just keep doing our thing. Ain't nothing else we can do about it.
Target that group, which is, common. And like you were saying, it's the norm now, and it's that doesn't make it okay, but I just wanted to point that out, including the rest of the story, which we walked to the store. Well, going to the store, we came across a group of people. Me and my boyfriend were kind of lagging behind because we wanted to talk about some things, and I just see my friend going back and forth.
Well, it's funny because it used to be 100 pages, and not too long ago it was 100 pages. So they've really been spinning themselves up into a massive frenzy over the past several months or so, if it's already gotten up to 200 pages. But you know what? Doesn't really matter. I've never been on that website. I will never look at that website. That website is a toxic hellscape. It's with the worst possible people on the internet, and I really encourage everyone to stay away from it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. It is a toxic hellscape that no one should be interacting with, because it's just going to pull you down to like the very bottom of the barrel, and it's going to destroy you. I've seen it destroy multiple people, and I want nothing to do with it.
Now, when you're in a group and you have that one fierce queen.
The police are well aware of what's going on. There's nothing I can do about it. There's no way to get anything taken down. It doesn't work like that. But the police are well aware. But we do not talk about that website here. We don't name the website here. If people don't know the website, don't worry about it. If you do know the website, I strongly recommend you stay off of it. But the police know. The police know that if they try to swamp me, they know exactly what's going on. The police know that there have been multiple complaints filed with the police. I'm just going to leave it at that. Let's return to this.
That's just like, hey, just really friendly, want to speak to everybody. And I guess that kind of offended them. Why? Who knows?
And this is the last thing I'll say about it, my husband and I own a lot of guns. And the way that my house is set up is actually really convenient, because there is a vantage point on my house where I have the high ground, where I can see every entryway into the house. And so we do actually have a plan where if people come to my house, they're going to be met by my husband at the door, who's going to have guns and several knives on him. And then I'm going to be up on the high level vantage point with the AR-15. And so if anyone comes to my house, they can fuck around and find out. So.
As I got closer, I just started hearing all type of epithets. You know, you faggots, you know, chicks with dicks, you dress like that because you want to rape men and, you know, trick men, and you African babies need to go back to Africa. And it was just really intense having to come into a situation where not only are we being targeted and harassed for being queer and trans, we're being targeted for being African American and being brown. So, you know, I never really dealt with racism on that level, not really upfront in my face, you know, here it is. And so I was just appalled. I didn't know how to handle the situation. And me, I'm usually turned up. You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody disrespects me, I feel like it's my place to say, I'm finna call you out on your bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, to have to deal with that, I was just taken aback. I didn't know how to handle that situation, especially coming from a very multicultural family. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a hodgepodge of everything, pretty much. And to have to deal with that, it was just really devastating to me. And, of course, I was so far gone, noticing that everybody else around me was, like, getting real turned up. You know, like my boyfriend, he was, like, not having it. And so as we, you know, get into the confrontation, and I'm standing there and I'm like, you know, these people are a waste of my time. I shouldn't even be standing here. And before I could even turn to walk away, I was attacked. And then that's when the melee happened. And after the fight was over, Dean decided to still pursue me after I was bloodied, you know, disoriented, didn't have, you know, no one helping me, no one at the bar was trying to help me. Actually, the people at the bar was trying to fight us too. So it's kind of like a big, you know, Ku Klux Klan fight war, you know, UFC championship war, whatever. And so I'm like, you know what, let me leave. Because, you know, I feel like, you know, I'm in a place where I'm not okay. I'm not feeling good. I'm not all right with this situation. I'm not feeling comfortable. I'm not feeling safe, which is sad because that was my neighborhood. I literally lived there, blocks away from the store. You know what I'm saying? And to have to deal with the ignorance and hate of others within my own community, it just really even made the situation.
So you're telling me that this person lived in that neighborhood blocks away from that store and they were never aware that it was just a haven for the KKK? Does that make sense to anyone else? I don't believe this person's story for a second, but they probably believe it's true, and the people in the audience probably believe it's true. But this is like this story makes no sense.
Even more, you know, mind-boggling for me. You know, not that I could even just walk out my house at 12 a.m., which is usually when I shop because I feel safest at that time. I don't feel like I have to deal with people. I feel like I don't have to, you know, deal with the ignorance and the stares and the cackles. So it's like, you know, that was my grocery shopping time usually. And so to have to deal with that, it really, really, you know, bothered me. But again, so, you know, Dean decided to pursue me after the fight. I didn't even know that he was still coming after me after the fact. You know, people were like, turn around, like, watch out. And I'm like, what? You know, I'm just like trying to hold in my face, literally trying to stop the blood from leaking out my face. And like, you know, having to keep continuing to deal with, you know, this abuse from this person. And so, you know, I turned around and I'm walking backwards and I'm just trying to keep a nice lengthy distance. But he was just like, it was like, you know how somebody wants something so bad?
Yeah.
And it was
Musican, this is a really good point. When people like this say the KKK, what they're referring to is people who are not Marxist, people who are not socialists. They literally call them the America with KKK in it. So it's not a reference to the actual KKK. It's a reference to America, which is a country that is built on racism via the Constitution, which they call the capitalist Constitution.
Just that look in his eyes that was just pure hate and evil, and like, I didn't know how to take that. So, of course, I did the first thing that I knew. I went in my purse and found the first thing that I can. Look, I'm telling you right now, if you don't want the business, you better back up. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, he took it upon himself to actually attack me with me showing him that I had a weapon. So therefore, he didn't really care that I had a weapon, you know?
Wait, you mean leftists are armed? Leftists have weapons too? Even 10 years ago? I had no idea.
He was still calling me bitches, saying, you black bitch. And, you know, like, are you serious? Like, right now in this moment, after your girlfriend just smashed a whole glass cup in my face and I'm sitting here bleeding, and I'm like, you know, he like lunged at me, grabbed my hair, tried to yank me down, and I did what I had to do. And so from there, you know, I walked away from the situation. At that point, I didn't know what had happened to him. I walked into the Cubs parking lot, was like, man, I think I did something to him. And he was like, you didn't do anything. And I was like, no, I think I did something. And right after that, the police showed up. Now, let me mind you, the police station is across the street. And it was just really frustrating to have them come and instantly, you know, guns draw, put your hands up, where's the weapon? Hey, can I get some help? I know you see, like, the situation here, like, but that wasn't their concern, you know. It was the angry black people against the nice bar patrons. And it's like, how can this situation get any worse? Well, I had to sit in the interrogation room for about 5 hours with no clothes because they had to take everything for evidence. And right after that, after me going through the whole interrogation process, I sat in jail and I had to wait 72 hours for them to tell me if they was gonna charge me or not. Those 72 hours had passed. And I thought I was, you know, I'm like, okay, maybe they understood the story. And literally, 73 hours later, they came with the papers and said that I was being charged with second-degree murder. And I kind of, you know, went through all the emotions. And I didn't know who to call. I really didn't want to call anybody because I felt like I've shamed my family, I shamed my friends, I shamed my community. So I didn't know how to handle that. But, you know, once I got in contact with people, you know, they was like, oh, hell nah, we not going for this. So you what? Okay, well, hold on for a second. You know, and, you know, people, a really close friend of mine, Abby's, who has...
So you guys know how the left is always calling out like the extreme, how should I phrase this? Like the extreme like discrimination towards black trans women. That's what you're seeing here. This is the type of stuff that built that narrative. Every time you hear them say, you know, they're calling out like the violence against black trans women, you're watching what helped build that narrative. That narrative's not real. Like, there is not a disproportional amount of violence towards black trans women. There's not a disproportional amount of black trans women that are murdered every year. There's like maybe a handful. But you're watching the narrative be built in real time. This is how they built it through stuff like this. And then everyone runs around saying, the police are against black trans women. The police are against black trans women. We have to protect black trans women from the police. It seems crazy, right? You're seeing one person talk at one conference with a couple hundred people in the room. But this is how this works. This is how narratives get built.
Has been in my life for a long time since I moved to Minnesota, really kind of brought everyone together. And, you know, I think without her, a lot of what had happened wouldn't have happened. I probably would have been still sitting in prison for a long, long time. During the trial process, you know, I had to deal with bullshit, you know, prosecutors who would not allow the fact that, you know, the statistics of trans women and hate crimes towards trans women, they didn't even want to, you know.
Oh no, the prosecutors wouldn't allow them to introduce evidence of hate crimes towards trans women? Guess what, guys? Guess what? My husband is the best. And my husband has just brought me a bottle of the finest gas station champagne. Thank you. Do you want one of your own? Sure. Okay, hang on. Hang on. I have to pay my husband in drugs. I have to pay my husband in the form of drugs. Thank you, Victor. I appreciate you. Thank you. You're good, right? You don't need anything? No, I'm good. Thank you.
Oh.
Hang on. Sam says, apparently their defense wouldn't let them use the guy's criminal history as evidence, as if self-defense gets you magical powers that tell you how much of a criminal the other guy was. Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't give me special privileges, and therefore they're discriminating against black trans women.
Legitimize the fact that I was trans. They felt that that wasn't even a part of the reason why I was attacked. Or the fact that I was black and this man had a swastika tattoo on his chest.
Really?
You know what I'm saying?
Really?
So it was just like, you know, they did everything that they could. They didn't want to bring up the fact that he had previous domestic abuse cases and assault cases. They didn't want to bring up the fact that, you know, in his blood system, he was, you know, high off of, you know, coke and meth and things like that. But they did want to...
Wait. So the person that she killed was high off of coke and meth and literally had a swastika tattoo on their chest. Really? Does anyone actually believe this? Does this make sense to anyone? Doesn't make sense to me.
At the fact that because I wrote a bad check, my bad check, that everything that I said from that point on would have been disloyal. Nothing that I said, if I decided to testify on the stand, it was null and void. So it was like, how are you guys really trying to help me in this process? How's, you know, you're trying to make me out to be the bad person. And everything that this man did from that point up before was like irrelevant. It was like, no, of course he beat on his girlfriend. So what? The issue is you wrote a bad check and now you're disloyal. And it's like, how can I felt so like defeated. I felt like there was nothing that I could do.
As a reminder, if you would like to help me celebrate the 300th episode of the show in this glorious queer Marxist marathon, feel free to send in a super chat. I appreciate all of you. I would love to hit a goal of $300 in super chats to celebrate the 300th show. So if you feel like chipping in, go ahead, chip in. We'll be here for a while.
That was going to get these people to understand what I was going through. Another thing that a lot of people don't know, during the jury process of picking a jury, there was a white man that got up there, and he pretty much said he don't like black kids because we're ignorant, we're loud, we're rambunctious, and I'm like, are you just saying that because you want to get out of this process, or are you really just being a dick up here? And I'm looking at her. She was my attorney at the time. I'm looking at him like, please get him off the stage because I think I'm finna lose it. Like, I'm finna lose it in the courtroom. And so, you know, we just cut it short, but it just goes to show, where is the justice in the justice system? You know what I'm saying? Like, if we allow the jury of our peers, you know, to pretty much justify where our life goes from that point, but the jury of my peers is not my peers. I don't know these people. They do not know me. This man just literally told the whole courtroom how much he doesn't like black kids. So how is that my peer? When have we ever sat down and had a scone together? That's not my peer. That's not my peer, and I don't appreciate it.
When have we ever sat down and had a scone together? All right. Hey, Hal, thank you for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. Guys, let's all give Hal a big round of applause. You want to know why? Because I was really hard on Hal yesterday. And you know what Hal did? Hal sent me a DM on Twitter saying, I'm going to come back and I'm going to try. And there's stuff I don't know. And now Hal's back. And so I have a great appreciation when people who, you know, get a little bit of the business from me. I have a great appreciation for when those people come back. I really, really do. You want to know why? Because I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to make you feel like personally bad. I'm trying to make sure people learn. And I'm trying to make sure people hear the things they need to hear in order to learn. And some people can take it and some people can't. But in the end, if you can't handle me, I promise you, you can't handle the left. The left is going to be way meaner than I am. The left is going to be way more vicious than I am, and the left doesn't give a flying fuck about your feelings. They really don't. So welcome back, Hal. We're really glad you're here.
Like that. You know what I'm saying? So, it just goes to show how fucked up our criminal system is and where does the justice lie in the justice system. For me to have to go through that whole process and deal with that whole situation, it was really crazy. I had made a quote the other day at Trans Pride. It was a tweet that Will Smith put up. Hold on. It's actually a good, this was one of his better tweets. He said that, how can the woman who threw flour on Kim Kardashian go to jail, but the person that shot Trayvon Martin is still free? Yes. What does that say about our justice system? This woman, literally had to go to jail for what they consider to be assault. This is a bag of flour. Now, let me mind you, this is the thing that you bake cookies and cakes with. Yet, there is a young man whose family is still grieving every day, knowing that his life was taken because someone felt like they had that right. They were standing their ground. You know what I'm saying? How are you standing your ground pursuing someone? How are you standing your ground pulling out a weapon on a defenseless child? He was still a child. You know what I'm saying? And if he couldn't accept that ass whooping, then he shouldn't have been following him. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. If you don't want trouble, then don't go looking for it. You know what I'm saying? And it's just ridiculous how our society is in this day and age where those who are blinded by the fact that racism still exists, that sexism still exists, that misogyny and transmisogyny still exists. That capitalism is an issue. Oh. You know what I'm saying? That all of these things...
Oh, really? Capitalism? Capitalism is the issue? You don't say. Really? Doesn't it seem funny that just got thrown in there at the end? It's almost like it's a bunch of words that all mean the same thing. Hang on, we're gonna clip that shit. No! Don't error on me now, recording tool. Don't do it. Recording tool. You're gonna come through for me. Come on. Don't punk out, recording tool. Don't do it. Come on. No! Okay, one more try for my clipping tool. It does not want to work today. It's like, no, I'm taking the day off. Oh, no, it's working. It's working. No one touch anything. It's working.
How our society is in this day. And I'm saying, if you don't want trouble, then don't go looking for it. You know what I'm saying? And it's just ridiculous how our society is in this day and age where those who are blinded by the fact that racism still exists, that sexism still exists, that misogyny and transmisogyny still exists. That capitalism is an issue. You know what I'm saying? That all of these things in our society exist and aren't acknowledged. You know what I'm saying? And when I was going through the whole trial process and I was, All
right, I got the clip. I just think it's interesting to hear them say the quiet part out loud 10 years ago. It's like they're saying exactly the same thing 10 years ago as they were today. Saying all the different isms that are all caused by capitalism, racism, misogyny, transphobia. They believe that all of those issues are caused by capitalism. Hang on, just saving the clip. I'm getting the spinning wheel of death. Hang on, that means we're getting close. Yeah, Trump wasn't even president yet. Yeah. Because it's always been the same. It doesn't matter who's the president. All right, let's keep going.
The books that I was reading, and I was self-educating myself, Angela Davis and Mumia Abu-Jamal, Huey P. Newton, and, all the greats. And just knowing, I never knew anything about the prison industrial complex. I actually thought prisons helped. And now I know the truth, and that's why I'm here at this conference, to share my word with everybody, to share my experience, to share what I've been through, and to find solutions and alternatives.
So prison's horrible for everyone. But trans women in particular face very difficult obstacles, from being denied hormones in prison, from refusal by the system to even recognize their preferred gender identity, to astronomically higher rates of solitary confinement and physical and sexual abuse from prison guards and other inmates. Cece, could you talk more about this with us and discuss what was prison like for you, and what did you have to go through in that experience?
Pretty much everything that you named, I've experienced while being incarcerated. They didn't want to give me my hormones. They tried to fabricate.
So anytime you hear socialists talking about abolition, they're talking about abolishing the prison industrial complex. That means abolish the police, abolish all prisons, let everyone that's in prison go, because they believe that in the Marxist utopia, everyone will have access to everything they need, so there will be no crime. That's what they're talking about. Abolishing the police, abolishing abolishing all prisons. They believe everything they say. They're not acting. They believe all of this. I know that might be hard to believe, but it's the truth.
As it being a glitch in the system, or they couldn't find the files and so on and so forth. And I said, oh, you can't find the files? Okay, hold on. Yeah, these bitches up here is playing with my hormones. Can y'all please do something about it the next day? The next day. You know what I'm saying? It's all about action. You know what I'm saying? It's all about the action and being collective and having a community. Collective. You know, but I definitely, me going both into jail and prison, they had me in solitary confinement. I spent overall about 9 months in solitary. And of course, again, you know, people wasn't having that. Like, you know, I would call them and they would say, what's wrong? And it's like, well, I can't do much. You know, I only get an hour out, can't talk on the phone. You have to choose what you want to do. You want to take a shower, you want to talk on the phone. It's like you don't have too many options for an hour. You're locked in your room 23 hours a day, and there's nothing for you there. You know what I'm saying? And so people got involved with that as well, because, you know, if I felt like I wanted to be around other people, that should be my choice and not the decision of the facility or people who feel like it's for my protection, which was their reasoning for everything with me. It's for your protection. And it's like, what the fuck was you about, you know, 30 minutes ago? Or, you know, like, I didn't make it to be 26 by not being protected. I know how to protect myself. I live this life. I'm about that life. And don't come in here and tell me it's for my protection. You can shove it. You can really shove that shit. Because it's like, you know, to talk about my protection, you would have to actually leave this facility, just retire, just let it go. Come to a couple of these conferences, then we can talk about protection, because there's no protection in prison. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you know, it angered me a lot to have people constantly tell me, it's for your protection. We're only doing this to protect you. You know, like, no, it's not. That's not how it works, you know. So dealing with those situations in prison were, you know, fucked up. And, you know, to say, I just want to say this also, like, I know, you know, people want to kind of sensationalize on the fact that I was a trans woman in a men's prison. I just want to say all prisons are fucked up. It wouldn't matter if I went to a women's prison. You know, they're talking about building a new trans prison in California.
So, okay, you're brand new here. So you're going to go through, if you keep coming back, because this is not going to happen in one stream, although we are going to watch a lot of stuff today. But this is for you, and this is for everyone else who is new. As you keep coming back to streams and watching more socialism with us, you are going to learn to speak their language. This is not something I can teach you to do in one stream. This is not something I can teach you to do in a single week. This is something that requires a little bit of effort, because it takes effort to learn a foreign language. You have to think of it, I mean, English is obviously your primary language. Think if you were trying to learn how to speak Mandarin Chinese, okay? you aren't going to understand Mandarin Chinese the first time you hear it. You aren't going to understand it the second time. But if you keep showing up at the classes and doing the things you're supposed to do, eventually you're going to understand it. It is exactly the same when you're learning how to speak socialist, because it might sound like they're using the same words as you. They're using completely different definitions. So I'm not trying to obfuscate your question, but just to say, I can't teach you how to recognize this right now, because the only way to recognize this is to learn how to speak their language. Once you learn how to speak their language, you will be able to recognize when they are being literal and when they're not being literal. And that's just the best answer I have for right now. And people in the chat can back me up on that.
Like, no prison is safe for no one. You know, you want to capitalize off of me through a fucked up system, and I'm not having it. You know what I'm saying? So I would rather die than go to any prison. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way that you can convince me that being in the men's prison, or being in the women's prison, being in the trans prison, being in the fucking unicorn prison, I don't care. It's not beneficial to anyone. It's not beneficial to me. It's not beneficial to you. It's not beneficial to our community. You know what I'm saying? And that's where the truth lies. So yes, it was fucked up for me being a trans woman in a man's prison, but think about all the other people who are in prison, who have to deal with that, who don't even get the chance to come out, who have to deal with that for their life. And so yes.
Albert, you're relatively new, so what I say every time someone comes into my chat and calls them stupid, you're losing to them. So what does that make you? They're winning, you're losing. So if they're dumb, what does that make you?
It was fucked up for me, but let's remind ourselves, there are still people in there that are struggling, and we have to be in solidarity with them.
Now, most mainstream, larger LGBT groups didn't get involved in your case. Groups like the Human Rights Campaign. I was waiting for that.
Oh, they don't like the Human Rights Campaign.
Why do you think that is, Cece? And if you had an opportunity to say something to them, what would you say?
Fuck off. And I say that because I had a really strong...
Human Rights Campaign is one of like the main like LGBT activist groups. It's a progressive group. Human Rights Campaign is a progressive group, and they booed the Human Rights Campaign because we're not listening to progressives right now. We're listening to socialists. Socialists do not like progressive groups.
Support system, the CC Support Committee, all of you who literally donated and spent time writing letters, and like, I can give a fuck less about the Human Rights Campaign, because guess what? I still overcame my obstacle with or without them. You know what I'm saying? But the fact remains that, one, people do not want to acknowledge trans women, trans people as humans. So it seems that our issues are irrelevant and just benign. You know what I'm saying? There's no point of getting involved. There's no point of, you know, and with the stigmatization of trans women as is, you know, the things that I assume go through people's...
I understand them, but it is not reality. Why don't they like them? It's their reality. It's not your reality. It's their reality. So it is reality. And the problem with saying it's not real, bro, they're winning. They control the culture. They control the schools. They control what your children learn in public schools. They control the future. They control the past because they write all the books. They're winning. So whether or not you believe that what they believe is true, that is the reality that is dictating what we have to experience in our world. They don't like the Human Rights Campaign because the Human Rights Campaign is progressive. These are not progressives. Socialists don't like progressives. Socialists don't like Democrats. Socialists don't support progressives. Socialists don't support Democrats. That is a bullshit conservative narrative that is not real. So that reality, the reality in which socialists and progressives are on the same team, is false. You guys believe that. Conservatives literally believe that Democrats and socialists are the same thing. That's false. That's not reality. Conservatives literally believe that Kamala Harris is a communist. That's false. That's not reality. Real communists hate her. Real communists didn't vote for the Democrats. So, that's the best answer I have, bro. Time to hinge into reality. You want to talk about what's real and what's fake and how everything they believe is false and everything you believe is real? I'll point out the bullshit that your side believes that is just so provably false based on primary source evidence, it's just like not even hard to debunk. And they're winning, so they get to dictate the game. They get to dictate the rules. They hold all the cards. You hold none of the cards.
Minds are really I'm trying to find a really nice word that's not, profane. It's really fucked up. I think that people's brains are just like, they can't register the fact that I actually defended myself. I guess there has to be some deviance with what I did, and somewhere in that, you know what I'm saying? And how can we as a large corporate group defend this woman? She probably did something bad, and I defended myself. I stood up for a transphobic, racist attack. And if you don't want to support that, then your existence is really irrelevant. If you talk about how can you be a group and call yourself the human rights group, me being a human, where my rights were taken away, it's like, how do you know? You're just a group. You're not human, or you don't have rights. You're just a group of people. What do you mean? I mean, seriously, how can you, and that's the thing, especially with large organizations, I know a lot of organizations were really apprehensive with getting involved with my case, only on the strength that it was so complex, you know what I'm saying? And then a couple of weeks later, the Trayvon Martin case happened, and then everyone was like, okay, well, if this motherfucker can claim self-defense, then why not CC? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yeah, but that's not how the system.
Guys, what do you need to do in order to beat the left? Pop quiz for the chat. What am I going to say to Albert here? What does Albert need to do if he actually wants to have a role in defeating the left? What is the most important thing that Albert needs to do right now instead of continuing to talk? Questions are fine, but there comes a time to be quiet. Albert, the thing you need to do is learn their language. You need to learn their language. You need to learn to speak their language. You need to learn as much as you can about the left. You need to learn their language. You need to listen and learn their language. You need to listen and learn their language. You need to listen. You need to listen, learn their language, and teach it to as many people as you can. You need to know your enemy and learn their language. See, even Albert knows. Learn their language. So, Albert, I'm going to recommend less talking, more listening, more asking questions about the language. You don't have to apologize. You don't have to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. But that's the answer. That's the answer that a lot of people don't want to hear. There's nothing to do other than you have to learn their language. If you don't learn their language, nothing you do is going to be effective.
Works. People don't understand that. This is a white man who said a black boy attacked him, so we know where that was going. You know what I'm saying? Oh, but it's the black trans woman that's claiming self-defense. Oh, no, that's all types of wrong. We're not going to get involved with that. You know what I'm saying? But how dare you call yourself a human rights group and you don't see everyone as human, or you don't respect everyone's rights? That's not how it works. So I say fuck off to them, and whenever they want to meet me face to face, I'm wherever you want to meet me.
If you wanted people to take away some lessons from your struggle and your decision to fight for justice, what would that be?
I just first off want to say that this situation, my incident, my trial, me now is much more bigger than myself. I know that I am doing this for all of us. Every word that I speak is the truth. Every feeling that I feel is for you. I do this because I know that we need to fight. We need to keep pushing forward. We need to let people be aware and see us. You know what I'm saying? You hear all the time conservative groups say that we're forcing our sexuality, we're forcing. Well, yes, we are, because if we don't, then you won't see us. So hello the fuck out. I'm here.
Oh God, that was great. I want to do that again. Like, conservative groups say you're forcing your sexuality on us. Yeah, we are, because we're taking up space. We're making sure you see us. That's funny.
That I feel is for you. I do this because I know that we need to fight. We need to keep pushing forward. We need to let people be aware and see us. You know what I'm saying? You hear all the time conservative groups say that we're forcing our sexuality, we're forcing. Well, yes, we are, because if we don't, you won't see us. So hello the fuck out. I'm here. Respect me, understand that. You know what I'm saying? You can't just say, I was the person that has been.
They don't believe that respect is earned. They believe that that they deserve respect just because they show up and yell.
Timid most of my life. I put up with a lot of people's bullshit. I've dealt with a lot of bullying. I've dealt with a lot of harassment. I've been raped. I've been beat up. But that's not going to deter me from being a strong, proud, black, trans woman. And I'm going to continue to fight for all of us until I croak. Do you understand that? Till I literally croak, until I shrivel up like a raisin and am no more. I will always be in solidarity with everyone who is in the struggle, who wants this fight, who is continuing to push forward, and we will never give up for anyone.
Solidarity is one of the words that you can use to recognize if you're speaking to a socialist. It's not that socialists only say that word, but it's pretty much only socialists. Solidarity is an indication that they're a good comrade, that they're part of the collective, that they see themselves as part of the greatest struggle. The struggle, of course, is always the struggle to overthrow capitalism.
I love you too.
All right.
See, that's like that's like what I was talking about with like the social media gays earlier, where it's like they don't actually know each other, but they'll be like, "I love you, queen. No, I love you. No, I love you more. Oh my god, let's go get a coffee. Let's take a picture for social media. Oh my god, I love you." And then they never actually talk to each other. It's the same vibe.
We're going to open it up to take just a few questions, and then Cece can, in comments, then Cece can come back, and then I have a few more questions for her, and we'll see how we do with time.
There have definitely been times where I felt that everything that had happened to me was my fault. It was my fault that I got raped. It was my fault that I just got harassed. How dare I have the audacity to walk down the street as a trans woman?
You know what?
In the broad daylight.
Not to like put a damper on the rest of this. I kind of want to switch and watch something else. I feel like we've gotten enough of CC. I want to hear from some more people. I want to watch some more. I feel like there are better queer things we can watch. So we're gonna move on. We're going to move on and watch something else, because I got a whole long list of things. Let's take some questions. Do they believe only they deserve respect? No, this is not narcissism. This is not narcissism. That is a bullshit right-wing talking point. It's not that. They have fundamentally different values than you do. They actually believe everyone deserves respect. They really do. They believe that everyone who are good comrades, who are a part of the good collective, do need deserve respect and consideration and care. This is not narcissism. This is not mental illness. They have a completely different value set than you do. So that's not what it is. Do you think that maybe flipping the narrative that feminism portrays... This is not feminism. This isn't feminism. This is socialism. Feminism, the tactics that feminism utilizes are an offshoot of socialism. It's all socialism. All right, let's see. What do we want to watch next? Let's see. Do you guys want to watch this 11-year-old video? This is from Canada. It's called Queerly Political, Activism, Feminism, Marxism, and Queer Politics. This is the Greater Toronto Workers' Assembly Coffee House, a PhD student at York University, member of the Greater Toronto Collective. Let's watch this. Let's watch this. Let's see what's up here.
I'm on their internal
No, don't do this to me. No ad.
education committee. And this event tonight is part of our ongoing coffee houses that we put on here in the city.
11 years old, so 2013.
This is the coffee shop we're having this evening is the last in a three-part series on anti-capitalism and feminism. The Greater Toronto Workers' Assembly has been having here over the last 3 months.
Hi, Cav.
And the main objective of this series to see the possibility of uniting a movement that respects differences, autonomy, and also advances common struggles against oppression and exploitation.
No, we're watching socialism. This is all about socialism. All the crazy ideas you're concerned about come from the socialist left. Take a seat, watch, learn.
What are the links?
I'm not deflecting from the feminism question, but truly, if you guys just sit and listen to them, you're going to see where all the feminist ideas come from. You really are. No, this is not about narcissism. Stop saying this is about narcissism. I know you're new. You're going to see this. This has nothing to do with narcissism. That is a bullshit conservative talking point. What I need people to do is unlearn the bullshit that you've been taught by right-wing commentators, essentially, because it's not real. If you sit down and listen, you're going to get the answers to your questions, I promise you.
The tensions between feminism and queer politics we'll be addressing perhaps
They're
tonight.
specifically talking
and
about
how can we understand women's liberation in the context of other movements against oppression, which we're dealing with tonight as well. Okay, the series tonight, the coffee shop today is called the Queerly Political, Activism, Feminism, Marxism, and Queer Politics. Okay, with that short introduction, I'd like to introduce our two speakers today. The first one is Joanna May Black. Joanna is an activist and a PhD student at the Political Science Department at York University. She's very active with the Trans Feminist Action Caucus at QP 3903, as well as an active member of SIA, the Students Against Israeli Apartheid at York, and the Cops Off Campus Coalition.
Okay, so I'm a little bit soft-spoken, so let me know if you can't hear me, especially the people in the back. So I haven't timed myself, but I hope I'm not too long, but I'll just start and see how it goes. I'm going to be giving a much broader Marxist feminist analysis rather than focusing just on queer movement. So I'm going to start by painting kind of a broad picture of what we call the feminization of poverty in Canada. And then I'm going to move on to talk about why I see moral and sexual regulation in Canada as a class-based project. And what this has to do specifically with queer women in Canada. So I'm going to look at first how the state, through capitalism, contributes to sexual and moral regulation of women in Canada, and then also how
the state, through capitalism, contributes to the moral and sexual regulation of women. Again?
So I'm going to look at first how the state, through capitalism, contributes to sexual and moral regulation of women in Canada, and then also how the state more indirectly makes women vulnerable to sexual moral regulation by other actors within the capitalist system. And I'm going to argue that...
Guys, the biggest barrier that most people have to overcome when they're first learning about this stuff, the reason I always point out when they're saying capitalism kind of in an unexpected way, is that the first barrier that people need to overcome is to really understand that every single issue the left talks about is related to the abolition of capitalism. They believe all of their problems were caused by capitalism. They believe that the abolition of capitalism and the introduction of Marxism will fix all their problems. They really do believe this. And so if you can get over that hurdle, that whiteness is about capitalism, that the gender stuff is about capitalism, that feminism is about capitalism, that the trans stuff is about capitalism, that queer is about capitalism, that abolish the police is about capitalism, that reproductive justice, abortion is about capitalism, that environmental justice, the climate change stuff is all about capitalism, that the pro-Palestinian protests are all about capitalism, that all of the stuff going on in the public schools is all about, like, all of it, everything always comes back to capitalism. And you hear them say it when you listen to them.
Sexual and moral regulation is one of the ways that women are kept as a subordinate, economically subordinate and exploitable class. Okay, so we'll start with the feminization of poverty in Canada. And so I'm just going to start with some statistics to kind of show a picture of what women's poverty looks like in Canada. So first, 1 in 7 women, which equals 2.4 million women in Canada, live in poverty. 51.6% of single-parent, female-headed families live in poverty. When it comes to senior women, women over 65, 41.5% of senior women who are single, widowed, or divorced, or otherwise unattached live in poverty. 35% of single women under 65 live in poverty.
Well, actually, it's funny that you say that, because a lot of queer Marxists are open about how into BDSM they are. This is actually something they talk about. They openly talk about being into BDSM, going into BDSM clubs. At one point, we analyzed this and we kind of thought that BDSM is queering normative sexual relations. I also think there's something about, in BDSM, it's kind of like a dictatorship of the proletariat, because the submissive is really the one in control of everything, even though they pretend they're not. So they like that. So yeah, it's like unironically true that most of them are into it.
When it comes to Indigenous people in Canada, 44% of Indigenous people off reservation live in poverty. And on reservation, the numbers are even bleaker, with 47% living in poverty. And Indigenous women are more likely to be living in poverty because of the continued effects of the Indian Act. So although it's no longer the case that if an Indigenous woman marries a non-Indigenous man, she loses her status, the effects of that over many years are still felt, because many women lost their status years ago and have not been able to regain it. It's actually very expensive to go through the court system to get your status back. When it comes to racialized women, 37% of racialized women live below the poverty line, compared to 19% of all other women in Canada. Racialized women are also overrepresented in precarious, part-time, and temporary labor. With migrant women, women who have newly migrated to Canada between the ages of 25 and 44 with a university degree earn on average $14,000 less per year than women who are born in Canada. For queer women, there isn't a lot of statistics out there, but there is information to suggest that queer women are more likely to be in poverty than heterosexual women or gay men. One study that does exist is a Winnipeg study that looks at lesbian seniors and gay seniors, which says that 42% of lesbian seniors live below the poverty line, compared to...
Notice they're distinguishing queer from lesbians and gay men. And they're actually saying that queer people are more oppressed than lesbians and gay men.
Only 14% of gay male seniors. Now to look at wages and work. At this point in Canada, women make only 71% of what men make for full-time, full-year work. Women with disabilities make 55% of what men with disabilities make for full-time, full-year work. With university degrees, that gap doesn't shorten very much. Women with university degrees make 74% of what men with university degrees make. The only time that gap shrinks is in the unionized sector. Unionized women make 92% of what unionized men make. And actually, this gap in all sectors has been growing rather than shrinking over the past 10 years. If we look at minimum wage work, women and youth make up 83% of minimum wage jobs. 70% of women in paid employment are concentrated in female-dominated sectors, which are often undervalued and underpaid sectors, such as nursing, clerical work, and education. The picture gets bleaker when we also look at pensions.
Milo is doing some investigation. This woman teaches this stuff at a Catholic university in California.
So the Canadian Pensions Plan and the Quebec Pensions Plan are both based on earnings. So women's lower earnings are reflected in their pensions. So the average male payout from the Canadian Pension Plan.
Joanna is a PhD candidate in the Department of Political Science at York University. For the past 2 years, she has taught Introduction to Women's and Gender Studies at St. Francis Xavier University. Great find, Milo.
Is $533 per month, where for a woman, the average payout is $299 a month, only 56% of what men get. So then we move to looking at the welfare system in Canada. 60% of single mothers in Canada rely on welfare at some point. All welfare rates in Canada are far below the poverty line, ranging from 20% below to 76% below. It varies province by province. Homelessness as well. Over half of the people in shelters in Toronto are women with children. So, as you can see, it's a pretty bleak picture when we're looking at women's poverty. And now I'm going to try and make some links between women's poverty and sexual moral regulation in Canada. And I'm going to argue that these two things are very deeply intertwined by looking at a brief history of moral and sexual regulation through welfare law in Canada. So what I'm hoping to convey is that...
Okay, I kind of want to fast forward and see if we can get to some Q&A stuff, because this is a little dry for me. Do we ever get into Q&A? I want to get into Q&A. Like, I'm not like disinterested about like the we're just going a little bit fast today because there's a bunch of stuff I want to look at real quick. So I'm gonna fast forward a little bit and we're gonna see what else we come up with.
An economically subordinate class whose labor is able to be exploited.
I don't know if I can listen to her.
But at the same time, the fact that women are an economically subordinate class with really exploitable labor keeps them vulnerable to sexual and moral regulation by the state. So it's kind of a circular relationship. And that's everything.
Hey, Bad Cat, this is interesting. Bad Cat, I don't want you to dox yourself or anything, but like, I'm in BDSM and there are relatively a lot of non-binary and trans, but most of us are heterosexual in real life. Online spaces, Discord. Bad Cat, can you point us to some online spaces and Discords that we can go to see queer BDSM in action? Because I would honestly be curious. Not from any sort of like sexual standpoint. I'm not curious sexually. I'm really like, I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying I'm curious sexually. I'm saying that I'm curious to see the queer propaganda in online BDSM spaces. I can't go on to all of FetLife. I don't even want to spend time on FetLife like normally. Like I want a specific suggestion, please.
The second person who will be speaking after Joanna is Alan Sears. Alan is a longtime activist and writer in Toronto. He's a member of the coordinating committee of the Greater Toronto Workers' Assembly, as well as the Toronto New Socialist. He also teaches at Ryerson, and his writings include Queer Anti-Capitalism, What's Left of Lesbian and Gay Liberation.
Queer Anti-Capitalism. Now that sounds right up our alley, doesn't it?
So without further ado, we'd like
So as someone who first came out in the 1970s, I've seen remarkable changes in my own life. Incredible gains, but also losses, and it's trying to take the measure of those gains and losses that I want to talk about tonight, and talk about how anti-capitalism can contribute to our understanding of those gains and losses and the balance between them.
Oh.
I've seen in my own life, with my own experience, the movement from being cast out, essentially unspeakable, except in terms of illness or sin or crime, to centerpieces of popular culture where you really can't turn on a sitcom these days without some gay dad popping up somewhere or other. From Cold War outsiders who were regarded as such a threat during the Cold War that the RCMP actually tried to develop a fruit machine to identify gay civil servants so they could be fired, to, in the current so-called war on terror, markers of civilization in the claims of the so-called civilized West in Islamophobic terms, where governments actually claim gay rights are part of their moral superiority and justify aggression and so on. A movement I've seen in terms of this
See, isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that James Lindsay has me and my entire community blocked? But he doesn't have Nick Fuentes blocked, does he? He doesn't have Nick Fuentes blocked, does he? I want to see what he said. Why doesn't James Lindsay have Nick Fuentes blocked? Nick Fuentes is supposed to be the worst anti-Semite in the history of anti-Semites. Why doesn't James have him blocked? Why would James even want to associate with the worst anti-Semite and white supremacist in the history of anti-Semites and white supremacists? Here's what we got. So Nick says, Candace Owens red pills millions of normies on the USS Liberty. Meanwhile, Daily Wire just lost their second host this year. We are winning. I want to remind people, we will be watching the Candace Owens USS Liberty stream tomorrow at 5 p.m. I've decided that's going to be our happy hour stream. I actually really want to watch it. I'm looking forward to it. I think they've done a good job. James says, ask yourself what happens when they win. Interesting, huh? Interesting. Kind of seems like James is using repressive tolerance, doesn't it? Notice when it is Israel mentioned that James feels the need to butt in. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Let's go back. Need to set up the audio again. Hang on. Isn't that funny?
Complex mixture of gains and losses, a movement essentially from liberation, a movement born out of a riot in 1969, to a fight for full citizenship and marriage rights, which has become essentially a narrow model of sexual freedom. In this period, I've seen us win very real rights, and I believe that those are a gain, and we can talk about that more, and yet settle for an extremely limited version of freedom that excludes many. That is gender normative and has gender normative conceptions of gay and lesbian, and in many ways excludes trans struggles, and is oriented disproportionately around the lives of better off white gay men, marginalizing many women, people of color, and indigenous peoples, people with low incomes, ignoring the struggles of trans people now, and erasing the historical contribution of trans people to queer liberation.
What word didn't he say? He just gave a whole long list of oppressed people that are not being acknowledged under heteronormativity. What group didn't he say? He said gender normative, but what group didn't he say? Again, remember, this is 2013. This is 11 years ago. And it's kind of interesting, the one he left out. I want to see if people can get it. No, he said trans. He said trans very clearly. I want to see if people get this. What group did he leave out in 2013 when he's talking about gender normativity? He's talking, no, he said gay. Guys, okay, we're going to listen again. People didn't listen the first time, so now we're going to listen again. Listen again. What group did he leave out?
Trans struggles. and is oriented disproportionately around the lives of better off white gay men, marginalizing many women, people of color, and indigenous peoples, people with low incomes, ignoring the struggles of trans people now, and erasing the historical contribution of trans people to queer liberation. That path...
What group did he leave out? What group weren't they talking about in 2013? No, it's not men or women. No, it's not the answer. What category of gender were they not talking about in 2013? Maria gets the gold star. Non-binary. No mention of non-binary at all. Because in 2013, non-binary hadn't become a thing yet. Everyone understands that, right? Non-binary started accelerating after gay marriage was legalized. So back then, they weren't even talking about non-binary. Non-binary, of course, is a reference to the gender binary. The gender binary means men and women. When they say non-binary, it means they want to abolish the gender binary. They want everyone to be non-binary. Non-binary literally means no binary. It wasn't in the zeitgeist yet. Isn't that interesting?
From a liberation movement...
So the question is, like, when did non-binary start to be in the zeitgeist? I'm betting it was a couple years after this, at least 1 year after this, but might be something to look into.
To settling for rights that in fact end up dividing is not unique to queer struggles, but is in fact...
He didn't say genderqueer. He didn't say genderqueer. He didn't say that either.
The trajectory of many of the incomplete liberation struggles that flourished in the 60s and 70s, anti-racism, feminism, indigenous sovereignty, workers' rights, all had elements in them at their highest points of struggle of a bold vision of a better world, and yet all have settled essentially for a slightly better situation for some in this world, real rights that do make a difference, and yet also exclusion and even deterioration of rights for others. And Joanna was talking about some of the deterioration for rights for women with low incomes, for example. And often a failure to address the fundamental sources of inequality. I want to argue today that anti-capitalism provides important tools for understanding this journey from liberation to rights, but to do so, anti-capitalism itself must be transformed.
Oh, yeah?
It means moving beyond a version of anti-capitalism that essentially uses class as a set of blinkers, which unfortunately is a legacy of some on the left, to understanding that we actually need a queer, feminist, anti-racist, anti-colonialist anti-capitalism that is actually informed by the experiences, the theories, and the struggles of women, people of color, of indigenous peoples.
Oh yeah? We need a lot of queer anti-capitalism. Hang on. We're gonna clip that part. Well, no. This has nothing to do with God. That is a conservative bullshit talking point. It has nothing to do with God at all. It does eventually lead to the abolition of the nuclear family, but not why you think. Has nothing to do with God, has nothing to do with religion. Unlearn that talking point because it is not real. All right, let me get my clipping tool set up. We're gonna clip this. I just want to get him saying all those words together. Come on, clipping tool. I know you can do it. No. Bro, shut the fuck up. You have no fucking idea what you're talking about. I have them on video talking about this. I've never heard you on my channel before. If I look into your chat history, hang on. We're going to take some time to yell at this guy. Let me look at your chat history. Have you ever even been here before? Let's see. Have you ever been on my chat before? Nope, you've never been in my chat before, which means you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. No, you don't. No, okay, hang on. We're going to stop the We're going to stop the whole stream. This question is only for Hold Fast Hound. Hold Fast Hound, please define for us what the left means when they say capitalism. We are stopping the entire stream for you, bro, because you are in here claiming that you know everything and we know nothing. How does the left define capitalism go? This is only for Hold Fast Hound. He's going to show us how much he knows or how much he doesn't know. How does the left define capitalism go? We're waiting for you. If you don't answer my question, you're going to be permanently banned from my chat. You can say I don't know, too. That's a perfectly acceptable answer. But We're going to see how much you know right now. How does the left define capitalism? Go. We're waiting. You know everything? You want to pretend you know what you're talking about? Let's see it. First time you've ever chatted on my channel, you're not sitting your ass down and listening? Are you off your fucking rocker? Nope, wrong. You want to try again. No, that's not how they define it. How does the left define capitalism? You know everything about the Frankfurt School, right? You mentioned the Frankfurt School. If you think you know everything about the Frankfurt School, you should absolutely know this. How does the left define capitalism? Do you want to admit you don't know? You want to be on my channel, you're going to learn real quick not to argue with me. Because I have more receipts than you ever dare dream. I have thousands of hours of leftists on video telling me what they believe. And I know every single bullshit conservative talking point that is shilled that is completely wrong. I know exactly when people are listening to influencers who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And you, my friend, have listened to influencers who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I knew that from one sentence in my chat. Anytime someone comes in here talking about God, that is a conservative bullshit talking point that is not based in reality at all. So do you want to admit that you don't know the answer, or do you want to give it another try? Let me know. We're waiting for you. Entire stream stopped just for you. If you don't answer, you get banned. Time to swallow your pride. If you don't want to do it, fine. You don't have to go, but you can't stay here if you don't want to play. Show us you want to learn, bro. If you don't want to learn, you can't stay here. You have 30 seconds. Either answer my question or leave. Or I'll make you leave by banning you, whichever. It doesn't really matter to me. Do you understand what the left means by capitalism, or don't you? We're waiting. Is he still here? Let's see. Yep, he's still here. He's not going to be here for long if he doesn't answer. Do you want to admit that you don't know so we can actually teach you some shit? Or do you want to be stubborn and claim you know everything when obviously you know nothing because you don't even know what the left's definition of capitalism is? If I ask my chat what the left's definition of capitalism is, they're going to know. You don't know because you came in here and asserted that you knew everything, but instead of actually stopping and listening. All right, hold fast, hound. You got 10 seconds to respond to me before I permanently ban you from my chat. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, goodbye. Goodbye, hold fast, hound. Now I have to do my clipping tool again. Hang on. I've got a million of those videos, Brucey, honestly. Like, I have a lot of those videos.
And often a failure to address the fundamental sources of inequality. I want to argue today that anti-capitalism provides important tools for understanding this journey from liberation to rights. But to do so, anti-capitalism itself must be transformed. It means moving beyond a version of anti-capitalism that essentially uses class as a set of blinkers, which unfortunately is a legacy of some on the left, to understanding that we actually need a queer, feminist, anti-racist, anti-colonialist anti-capitalism that is actually informed by the experiences, the theories, and the struggles of women, people of color, of indigenous peoples, and of queers. And if we begin to do that, then we begin to think about what queer liberation, gender and sexual liberation would mean, that would aspire not simply to transgression, to essentially acting up eternally against the normative sexuality, the dominant forms of sexuality, the sexual regulation, but towards transformation, towards actually overturning normal, smashing the current system of gender and sexuality to produce new relations based on real freedom, to understand gender and sexuality in terms of play, both in the engineering sense, which means essentially flex in a material, and also in the sense of being creative activity conducted under conditions of freedom. The project of smashing normal, if that's where we're heading, means that we need to understand something about how the sense of normal is generated, where normal comes from. So I'm going to talk a little bit about new normals, because there's a TV show now.
Okay. I think that's a great clip. That is a great clip. He said so many of the quiet things out loud just then. Let me just make sure I've saved this clip. If only our friend had actually admitted he didn't know the answer, he could still be participating right now. But sadly, once you understand that people are not here to learn, they're just here to see themselves, to hear themselves talk, then we can just ban them from the chat and get them out of here very, very quickly, can't we? Makes things a whole lot easier. Okay, let me see. I did see a question. Why do they, communists, hate Christianity but not Islam? They don't hate Christianity. That's a conservative bullshit talking point. They don't hate any religion. They don't hate any religion. They're not really. They never talk about it. There are not sessions at socialist conferences about how to push back against the evil Christians. There aren't. They don't talk about it. They are perfectly fine with people believing whatever they want as long as their beliefs don't get in the way of socialism. They're a Christian socialist. Just full stop. That's a conservative bullshit talking point. All right, let's go back and listen to that part again, because he said a lot of the quiet part out loud just then, and I just want to go through it step by step.
Of color, of indigenous peoples, and of queers. And if we begin to do that, then we begin to think about what queer liberation would...
Queer liberation means to liberate themselves from the oppressive force of capitalism. Queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism.
Gender and sexual liberation would mean that would aspire not simply to transgression, to essentially acting up eternally against the normative sexuality, the dominant forms of sexuality, the sexual regulation, but towards transformation.
Transformation. How interesting that he used the word transformation. He's saying we just don't want to, we don't want to be in a state of forever pushing back against the normal, the legitimate, the dominant, which is how they define normativity, or how they define queer. Queer is the what does Derek Halpern say? Well, it's pushing back against the normal, the legitimate, the dominant. They don't just want to be in a constant state of transgression against the normal, the legitimate, the dominant. They want to transform societal norms. That sounds a little bit like transforming gender, doesn't it? Everything he's about to say. So when queer theorists are using the word trans, they don't mean trans as in transition from man to woman or woman to man. They mean trans as in transform or transcend, they say sometimes too. Transform gender or transcend gender. They will transform society when they transform norms around gender. That's what they think. Let's keep going.
Towards actually overturning normal. Smashing.
To overturning normal. Not just pushing back on normal, overturning normal. Transforming normal. Normal means societal norms that uphold capitalism.
The current system of gender and sexuality.
Smashing the current system of gender and sexuality. Transforming the current system of gender.
Produce new relations based on real freedom. To understand gender and sexuality in terms of play, both in the engineering sense, which means essentially flex in a material, and also in the sense of being creative activity conducted under conditions of freedom.
Freedom means socialism.
The project of smashing normal, if that's where we're heading, means that we need to understand something about how the sense of normal is generated, where normal comes from. So I'm going to talk a little bit about new normals, because there's a TV show right now that people here may have seen called The New Normal, which is about a white gay male couple embarking on parenthood. And that's just one of the...
Guys, I gotta run to the little socialist room real quick. I'll be right back. Please watch and take good notes for me. Let me know if I miss anything.
Many kind of appearances that we see of disproportionately gay men, better off gay men, and sometimes gay dads on TV shows. Both Obama and Romney in the recent American election said that their favorite TV show was Modern Family, which features gay dads. When I was first coming out in the 1970s, there were virtually no reference points in popular culture. There were not TV shows like that. And that is in itself a remarkable change, and yet if you look closely at it, you begin to see that this image is not only that of white men who are well off, but it's also a desexualized image. And it's in fact, in many ways, modeling a new kind of masculinity. It's not a rejection of masculinity, but a new kind of masculinity that is consumerist, still dominant in many ways, and engaged to some extent in caregiving. So we've seen this change in our lifetimes in the idea of normal. Or we've seen this change in my lifetime, many people. From Cold War outsiders to allies in the Islamophobic war on terror, sadly something that many lesbian and gay writers are. They actually are allies. We've seen to becoming models of consumerist masculinity, and in fact, pioneers in...
Hang on, there was a question. Do they need something particular about norms that uphold capitalist society? So in relation to gender, you're going to be looking at norms around marriage, monogamy. Queer Marxists were not in favor of gay marriage. Queer Marxists did not want gay marriage to be legalized. They didn't want gays to have access to the institution of marriage because that upholds society. You're looking for norms around the gender binary, men and women. You're looking for norms around the nuclear family. That's what they mean. Maria, thank you for the member chat. He said new normal. I heard that the first time at the beginning of COVID. Indeed. Indeed, Maria. Thank you.
New ways of thinking that are very compatible with neoliberalism.
Neoliberalism.
And for that to happen, it requires the invisibilization, the making invisible of low-income and working-class queers, of queers of color, of trans people, and to a large extent, queer women.
He just distinguished between trans and queer. Did you guys catch that? There's no reason to say trans people separately from queer, unless they're two different categories.
So where does anti-capitalism come into this? Well,
good question.
In many ways, capitalism can be understood as a succession of changing normals. It's not simply one normal through the whole history of capitalism. Joanna was actually even talking about some of the changes quite specifically. But there's these periodic changes in normal after World War II, during the 60s and 70s, and with the imposition of neoliberalism. In each case, the idea of normal has been dramatically shifted in many...
After World War II?
Many different areas of life. New normals are features of the system, and it in many ways can be understood as a succession of new normals, punctuated on the one hand by processes of restructuring, where something like an economic downturn, like the global slump since 2008, means that corporations make massive changes to try to restore profitability, but also due to resistance from below, because working class people, women, people of color, and others have challenged the idea of normal and fought to change it. And in many ways, you can understand that in terms of lesbian and gay rights. We've only won these rights because of resistance from below, because we fought from the pioneer organizers going against the stream in extremely difficult situations, to the powerful movement against the bathhouse raids in Toronto that brought thousands into the street in defiant militancy, to lesbian feminists.
It is really, I've been thinking a lot about, listen, again, I said this earlier, I'll say this again. I love the gays. I really do. I have no problem with gay men at all. But I've been reading a lot of queer Marxist literature lately from like the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And this stuff is gross. It honestly has like a toxic energy about it. And it's making me kind of want to ban all things related to like gay culture. I'm not talking about being with whoever you want to be with. I'm not talking about loving whoever you want to love. That's not what I'm talking about. But like this, I just thought of this when he brought up this bathhouse thing. Like the first big battle that gay men fought during like the like when AIDS started being a thing, the first big battle that gay men fought was, we will keep our bathhouses. And it's like, bro, that's kind of like, it's kind of gross. Like, a bathhouse is kind of gross. Like, really, it's like a place where men get to go and fuck men that they don't even know. Like, in public, but not really in public, but kind of in public. It's just like, it's fucking gross. And it's like, it's fucking gross that this was like the big battle to the big militant battle to stand up for gay rights, as we want our bathhouses where we can fuck indiscriminately. It's like, is that something that we really want in society? I mean, I don't care if they did it. Maybe I'll look in their thing about queer history, but like, it's like, I don't care how many people you have sex with, but like, this is the hill you want to die on, is the bathhouse? It's gross. I'm sorry. No offense, but it's gross. Yeah, and it's like, you're literally incubating, in this point, like in the 80s, you're literally incubating and spreading a deadly virus through indiscriminate sex with people that you don't even know. Again, I'm not a prude when it comes to sex at all, but like, this is what you want to stand up for? It's gross.
Organizing that raised all kinds of questions, both within feminist movements and in terms of queer life, through AIDS activism, Queer Nation, lesbian and gay caucuses and unions and queer caucuses and so on. We've seen these changes because we fought, but also, I would argue, because of the changes in society and what we can loosely call neoliberalism that have actually created new openings. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the compatibility between the kind of lesbian gay that's emerged and neoliberalism, and then talk about why that's important in terms of anti-capitalist perspectives. Neoliberalism, roughly speaking, since the 1970s, the cutbacks and state program and emphasis on the markets and all these kinds of things, has had...
I'm not understanding how they link things back to capitalism as the oppressor, so I recommend for you that you head over to my Substack and you read the Re-Education series, or you can watch my videos on the topic. I can't go into an advanced lesson just for you in the middle of a stream, but essentially... So the number one enemy of the left is capitalism. It is always the enemy of capitalism. When it comes to queer, they're talking about normative values that uphold a capitalist society. You might be thinking of capitalism as an economic system. Capitalism is not an economic system to the left. It's both an economic and a social system. If you don't understand this, the social cultural system, that's part of the problem. So they're talking about cultural norms that uphold and reproduce capitalism. One of those cultural norms is the nuclear family, which queer seeks to abolish the gender binaries as an attack on the nuclear family. They believe the nuclear family is the literal means of reproduction of capitalism. They want to queer the nuclear family so that the queered versions of the family don't raise children with capitalist values. I suggest you watch my Abolish the Family content, and that would be a great place to start. If you have a specific question, I can answer it, but you're not asking me a specific enough question for me to be able to answer it succinctly is the problem. You might not know that, which is fine, but that's what it is.
Three key features that have really affected lesbian and gay life, and I'm using lesbian and gay very specifically here because that's who fits with neoliberalism in very specific ways, and not all lesbians and gays either. On the one hand,
lesbians and gays fit with neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is another way to say capitalism, but queer people do not fit with neoliberalism. Again, queer and gay are not the same thing.
Huge emphasis on the market. Buying and selling everything is in fact the core of what becomes society and so on. Downloaded responsibilities for caregiving, the idea that we have no right to anything except what we can afford to buy on the market, and the kind of cuts in social programs and so on make that really clear. In that situation, the kind of lesbian and gay life that's thrived and the sense of what being out and visible as lesbian or gay has meant is that's thrived in commercial spaces. As in me, lots of other people have mentioned this. Bars, stores, certain styles, certain clothing, and so on. It's a series of consumer choices, essentially, that's reflected in out identity in many ways. And in many ways, in fact, gay men specifically have become pioneers of a new kind of masculine consumerism up until essentially neoliberalism and changes in brought about in terms of sexuality and gender. Men really didn't shop so much, men were less conscious of their appearance. There's been dramatic changes in these areas, and in many ways gay men have been models for more attention to appearance, more money on products, more money on fashion, all this kind of stuff. That has in fact largely been generalized in many ways to heterosexual men as well. Now, of course, if consumerism is one of the markers of what makes out lesbian or gay identity, those who are excluded from consumption in that way become invisible. Queers without money essentially disappear as out, disappear as visible, disappear from the image of freedom. But also these images, and I can't go into this now, but I'm happy to talk much more about it, are highly racialized. And Wayne McBride, in his incredible book that I highly recommend, Why I Hate Abercrombie and Fitch, talks about how that company, which is kind of in some ways iconic in terms of the creation of the kinds of images that are there in terms of sexualization in gay men, are highly racialized. And that's very specific. They have a whole history of presenting themselves as explorers, all this kind of stuff. So that's one of the changes, is this market, and so we've seen the rise of these market lesbian and gay identities. Secondly, in terms of social policy, and this relates a lot to what Joanna was saying, but I'm going to put it slightly differently. With the shift from the broad welfare state to neoliberalism, we've seen elements of a partial deregulation that have created certain kinds of openings for lesbian and gay existence, but I'm going to also say other kinds of harshness and re-regulation. So from the 1800s to 1970s, governments put a lot of effort into teaching working class people how to live well in the view of the government, and Joanna was talking about some of these things. Frugality and saving, so that they controlled gambling. Sobriety, so prohibition was introduced for a period. Some areas of Toronto lasted longer, and drinking laws were pretty stiff, all that kind of stuff. In terms of forming gender, home ec classes, shop in school, there was a tremendous investment and the kind of social programs that Joanna was talking about. And the stigmatization of social assistance, that basically said if you don't earn a wage, you are a lesser person and should live in lesser conditions. All those things were kind of taught so that social programs aren't only about benefits, but it's also about teaching people a particular way of life. Neoliberalism has involved a partial deregulation of that. I'm not just being optimistic about this, but a partial deregulation, because in some ways this sober, saving, frugal, working class person was actually a bit of a barrier to the market, to spending, to the circulation of money, like the casino coming to Toronto and so on. And so they began to relax laws on gambling, on drinking, on censorship, and to eliminate barriers essentially to buying and selling.
I was wondering where he was going with this deregulation thing, because in general, like, the left is not actually in favor of deregulation. They want more regulation. But like, you know, where he's essentially going is, and again, this is in Canada, this is not in the United States, is that the deregulation was in favor of enhanced consumerism. So the things they were deregulating were to get people to spend money. Spend money means capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system. It's just always also a social system. So he's saying, like, the deregulation was bad because it was basically trying to get people to spend more money and engage in the capitalist structure. That makes more sense.
The free market. And in many ways, I would argue, to be provocative, that lesbian and gay rights, in the sense that they are in many ways parallel to the deregulation of gambling, smoking, drinking, censorship, and so on. But we always have to understand that that came along at the same time with increasingly harsh measures. The use of jail, which has actually increased. Way more people in prison, especially disproportionately indigenous people, people with low incomes and so on. New forms of policing, stigmatization of social systems becoming even greater through things like workfare and so on. So we've seen changes in that partial deregulation. Lastly, we've seen changes in work. And I can't go into this, and I hope this doesn't sound kind of technical, but I think it's interesting to think about how changes in work are gendered. They're also racialized. And so changing ideas, and some feminist labor historians have talked about this, changes in the mode of work have often been associated with changes in gendered relations. And I'm going to give a couple examples just so you know. It used to be, for example, up until the introduction of mass production and the assembly line, that one of the key markers of that many men claimed as masculinity.
Maria is asking a question. Would it be accurate to say social systems and economic systems are like Siamese twins joined at the heart? They may be separate, but they need... I guess, Maria, I think it's way overcomplicating it, to be honest. Queer usually tends to be more about the social system. It tends to be about cultural issues. It is true that they are intertwined. I mean, maybe you know what? Maybe I'm poo-pooing it a little bit early. Maybe you are making a really good analogy. Maybe there's like a graphic we can make to that effect. You know, I'm warming to it. So yeah, but you're not wrong. Oh yeah, they hate libertarians. They hate free market capitalism. They say free market capitalism is fascism, for sure.
Was certain kinds of craft skills, so that a certain knowledge became a marker of your male superiority. That changed with the assembly line because it was harder to claim that you had specific skills that marked you off as a man. Instead, you were marked off as a man by your ability to endure pain, noise, monotony. By certain embodied skills, like you knew the process through your body. You could listen and you knew when the machines were going wrong, when the process was going wrong. And through provision for the family, the idea of the male wage as a key marker of masculinity, only for certain sections of the working class, the family wage, and only at certain times, but it was there. With lean production, the reorganization of work in the last 30, 40 years, we've seen a much greater role of information technology. Work is less embodied, more machine, and therefore it's gendered differently. There's been a decline of certain forms of masculinity, but a rise of new forms. I'm not saying a decline in male dominance, but that new forms of masculinity are more dominant. The male dominance, for example, of the accountant, who can shut down 1,000 jobs with dispassion, which is another form of masculine dominance, but not the kind that we may associate traditionally with a queer basher, for example. And there's a lot more to be done about this, but I just think that it shows how deeply capitalism shapes our gendered selves, our racialized selves, and so on. But similarly, capitalism itself is shaped by relations of gender, racialization, indigeneity, and so on.
It's inextricably linked from capitalism.
Since the 60s and 70s, we've won elements of formal equality, and yet the real inequalities persist. We've won a narrow vision of sexual freedom that's based in many ways on the idea of the free and autonomous and self-supporting individual, who is now more free to play sexually. But this idea, as Sarah Ahmed and Jasbir Poor say, is actually very, very specific. That's not a universal idea of sexuality. The individual who's free to choose to consent, the autonomous person who's not got domestic responsibilities, who's not anchored in communities or cultures, is a very specific notion with relating to specific classes, particular experiences, and so on. So I've been trying to kind of lay the path for saying there have been real gains, but I think part of the reason that the gains are so partial is that we haven't challenged, among other things, the role of capitalism in shaping relations of gender and sexuality along with class racialization, and so on, and understanding how deep those things go. So we need at this point to think about a renewed struggle for queer liberation.
Hang on. We don't care about right-wing perspectives on this channel. We only care about left-wing perspectives. And I don't care about what issues you have with capitalism as a right-winger, because you are not defining capitalism in the same way. The right-wing definition of capitalism is not the same definition as the left-wing definition of capitalism. This is why I harp so much on the definitions, because you think you're talking about the same thing, but you are not talking about the same thing. So there are criticisms to make of capitalism from the right, but we don't do that here because, quite frankly, you guys are not winning. You guys are not anywhere close to the left. You are not in the same fucking league as the left. You are a little league team playing t-ball. The left is in the major leagues. So until you figure out some way to start defeating the left, your definition of capitalism doesn't matter because they are the ones driving the discussion. I hope that's clear. No issue that you have with capitalism is ever going to be solved by the left abolishing capitalism. Because they're not abolishing what you think they're abolishing, because you're not defining the words in the same way. That's why you need to learn the definitions.
Goes beyond being channeled towards very specific rights to push for a much broader change. That can go beyond a government policy, even by right-wingers, to claim that that we are superior and so on, and that can actually talk about a genuine transformation in relation of gender and sexuality from top to bottom. And anti-capitalism has much to contribute to that struggle, I would argue. But to do that, it means thinking that queer liberation, gender and sexuality is not just something to add to anti-capitalism. It's not just another thing, another issue to take up. It actually requires that we rethink what anti-capitalism means from top to bottom.
What assertions? You've got to be more specific in your questions, honestly. It doesn't matter if they derive evidence and proof because they're the ones that are winning. It's not a requirement to derive evidence and proof because they're the ones that are winning. It's like you guys have got to stop. Like, listen, this is the biggest barrier for new people. You have to accept the position that you are in, which is they are kicking your ass massively, and that's why they get to dictate the rules. So, do they need to provide evidence and proof? No, they don't, because they get to dictate the rules because they're kicking your ass massively. Do you think debunking them is going to fix the problem? No, it's not, because they don't care what you have to say. So, you've got to face the reality that you're in. You don't have the same definition of capitalism as they do. So no, you're not a leftist because you don't have the same definition.
And to be provocative, as my last comment, I think that the Workers' Assembly, the Greater Toronto Workers' Assembly, thus far, has not been that successful at doing that rethinking.
It's fine.
And I believe one of the markers of the next new left, of a real left that can actually have transformative power, will be the ability to rethink what anti-capitalism means as we engage much more broadly with issues in the world. So thank you very much.
Okay, that was interesting. Yeah, Misa's saying they frame history through a Marxist lens. That's how they have the evidence. They create the evidence by how they frame the discussion. And that's why we're learning from them. All right, guys, I do want to watch one more thing. I actually want to watch this. I've actually had this on the list to watch for a while. We're going to do one more thing in our Queer Marxist Marathon. It seems like a lot of people are petering out. That's all right. I still have one more thing I want to watch. And this is going to get into Abolish the Family. Queering Marxist trans feminism, queer and trans social reproduction. This was done at the University of London in 2017, so we're getting a little bit closer now. This is after the legalization of gay marriage in the US, but this is also in London. This is in the UK. And so we're going to see what they had to say at the University of London. Thank you, Alex! Thank you for being a member of the channel. From Cult 28 to Cult 300, it's been a wild ride. I will forever be grateful learning why everything is queer, including Disney. Hey, thanks, Alex. You've always been a great supporter. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, the thing of it is you can have issues with capitalism. You really can. There are very valid criticisms to be made of capitalism. But the important thing that people need to understand is right now the higher priority is defeating the left. Because if the left wins, the problems that you have with capitalism are going to pale in comparison to the problems that you're going to have. So for right now, what we need to do is protect private property ownership at all costs, because that is what capitalism is to the left. It's private property ownership. And the rest of the issues have to be sorted out after the left is put back in its place. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it. Guys, if you want to contribute to my Super Chat fund, I don't think we're going to hit our goal for today, but that's all right. That's all right. It was an aspirational goal. Sometimes we don't always hit the goals. But if you would like to contribute, please feel free to send in a Super Chat to celebrate my 300th episode. Albert, that's the dumb... I know I said there's no stupid questions. That's a dumb question. It's not... If you think about this as some sort of grand battle as good versus evil, you miss the point entirely. So I recommend you keep listening. All right, let's listen to this to see what happened. Queering Marxist trans feminism, queer and trans social reproduction. Oh, gosh.
So hello, good evening. Welcome everyone to the Institute of Historical Research and to the Marxism and Culture Seminar. My name is Chrissy Papayan. I'm one of the seminar conveners here, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, Nat Raha. Some of you will be familiar with Nat's work because she's a very active activist, but also a poet who has performed her work in a number of venues, including Senate House recently, as part of the Radical Voices exhibition, organized by Senate House Library, and also she has published her work in a number of collections and pamphlets. And I should mention here the most recent one called Extinctions, but which is in fact typed with the euro sign and the pound sign and the /, and they're connected and bound, because as Nat describes the pamphlet in her blog, it's a zine pamphlet of pre-Brexit prophecy and disintegrations. And her broader, we can talk about it more later, her broader body of work, and you can correct me here if I'm representing you wrongly, can be situated at the intersection of poetics, queer studies, trans studies, and critical race theory, and she has been involved in organising platforms such as the Race and Poetry and Poetics in the UK, and a stream at the London Conference in Critical Thought called Radical Transfeminism. Her main project is her doctoral dissertation entitled Queer Capital, Marxism and Queer Theory, and Post-1950 Poetics, which she's writing at the University of Sussex under the supervision of Keston Sutherland. And is that correct? Yes. Just about. Supervision is always a loose thing. And Nat has recently moved to Scotland, and now she's involved with a research project at the Edinburgh College of Art called Cruising the 1970s, Unearthing Pre-HIV/AIDS Queer Sexual Cultures. And I should also mention the fact that Nat will have her first scholarly publication out at South Atlantic Quarterly, which will be out this summer in 2017, and the article is called Transfeminine Brokenness, Radical Transfeminism, so look forward to reading that. So tonight's paper, the focus will be on an expanded definition of the category of social reproduction, which has primarily been used in Marxist feminist theories through the prism of domestic labor or domestic mode of production, and I think that this intervention is really, really timely and pushes debates forward in many different directions, both from a queer studies perspective and what's usually a deconstructive psychoanalytic dominance in queer studies, but also for us in the Marxist context. So we're delighted to have Nat. Please welcome Nat.
Thanks, Chrissy, for having me, and thanks to the MIC team. It's really nice to be here. It's quite exciting, actually. And this has kind of been in the works for a while, both this talk and also the work that I'm talking about. I'm going to give a very quick location of this work so as you've all just heard about my PhD, this is currently being turned into a PhD chapter, so it's in this kind of strange hybrid moment, which will set us up in the middle of the talk.
Thank you, your pal, for the $5. Your pal says, have money from my capitalist coffers as a thank you for answering my questions. Hey, I really do appreciate it. Yeah, that is one of these schools of thought. Yeah, that's yeah, they some of them want that, yeah.
Which in the middle of the talk, I'm going to talk a bit about street transvestite action revolutionaries, who are a group based in New York in the 70s. The bit of that talk is actually from a different paper that I kind of slotted in here, so if it feels like it's slightly less synthesized, that's maybe the reason for it. There was something else I was going to say. There might be some random points in the talk where I realise a word is missing from the sentence I'm reading, so I'll hopefully that'll be okay. So the talk is entitled Queering Marxist Transfeminism, Queer and Trans Social Reproduction. So, in the now canonical in queer studies, The Twilight of Equality, Lisa Duggan's formulation of homonormativity as, quote, a politics that does not contest dominant heteronormative assumptions and institutions.
We're getting a great definition of homonormativity. What does homonormativity mean? Pop quiz for the chat. What does homonormativity mean? Right off the bat, a great definition. Remember, this is in 2017. What does homonormativity mean? So after gay marriage was legalized in the United States, homonormativity means gays that uphold capitalism, gays that assimilate to capitalist culture, gays that are not pushing back on the system, gays that are not queer. This is how we know that gay is not queer, trans is not queer. Queer is a far left political ideology because they're about to define homonormativity as gays who assimilate to capitalism. Exactly. Gay marriage is one of the ways in which gay people can be homonormative. Participating in a monogamous relationship with two partners is a way that gays can be considered homonormative. Having kids, buying a house, having a normal job within the capitalist system, all of those are ways that gays can be considered homonormative. Homonormative is not a positive thing in queer theory. It's actually kind of like a negative thing. They're talking down to you. They're saying you're trying to be like the straights when you shouldn't be trying to be like the straights. Yes, marriage to queer Marxists is the same as private property ownership. Exactly. Let me just set up my clipping tool and get this recorded. I want a good definition of homonormativity.
The Twilight of Equality. Lisa Duggan's formulation of homonormativity as, quote, a politics that does not contest dominant heteronormative assumptions and institutions, but upholds and sustains them, end quote, emerges within conditions of possibility backed by neoliberal capitalist structural adjustment and its transformations of the conditions of socially reproductive labour. Homonormativity is offered specifically with a, quote, promise of a demobilised gay constituency and a privatised, depoliticised gay culture anchored in domesticity and consumption, end quote. Duggan emphasises...
So there was a lot in that. Hang on. And the captions are horrible. The captions are horrible. The captions are not capturing what this person is saying at all, but the audio is good. So I'll have to replace the captions later. That's fine. That is fine. Hang on, let me just make sure I have it saved, and then we were going to go back and talk about homonormativity real quick. Come on. There we go. Got it saved. All right. All right. Let's go back and break down this definition of homonormativity.
The Twilight of Equality. Lisa Duggan's formulation of homonormativity as, quote, a politics that does not contest dominant heteronormative assumptions and institutions.
Okay, so homonormativity is a politics that does not contest heteronormative assumptions and institutions. That means that homonormativity are gay people who are not queer, are not pushing back on the normal, the legitimate, the dominant. Normativity is all societal norms that uphold capitalism. So homonormativity are queers that assimilate, or excuse me, are gay people that assimilate to capitalism. They're not queers because queers don't assimilate to capitalism. Queers push back on normativity. Again, the normal, the legitimate, the dominant, anything that upholds capitalism.
But upholds and sustains them, end quote, emerges within conditions of possibility backed by neoliberal capitalist structure.
Homonormativity is backed by neoliberal, that should say capitalist structure. Neoliberal means, again, capitalism. They believe that Democrats are neoliberal. They believe progressives are neoliberal. Dave Rubin would be an excellent example of homonormativity. Exactly. It is backed by the neoliberal capitalist structure that upholds societal norms.
Adjustment and its transformations of the conditions of socially reproductive labour. Homonormativity is offered specifically with a, quote, promise of a demobilized gay constituency.
So when gay people assimilate to homonormativity, that means they aren't engaging in the struggle. It means they are not engaging in activism. It's a demobilized gay constituency. Mobilized means you're activists, you're organizing, you're fighting to overthrow the evil normative system that holds up capitalism, because queer liberation can only be achieved when capitalism is annihilated, according to the Mary Nardini gang. So if you're engaging in homonormativity and you're getting married and you're in a monogamous relationship and you buy a house and you have a kid in whatever way you have kids, you are engaging, you are demobilizing yourself. You are taking yourself out of the struggle, out of the fight for gay liberation.
And a privatized, depoliticized gay culture.
And a privatized, remember capitalism means private property ownership, a privatized, depoliticized gay culture. They're saying that in order to be queer, queer is a political act. If you're engaging in homonormativity, you're not politicizing your identity.
Anchored in domesticity and consumption.
Anchored in domesticity and consumption. Again, it's like you're just a normal person that has a house and you're just consuming stuff like an evil capitalist.
Right. Duggan emphasizes that neoliberal capitalist social restructuring privatizes the costs in labor of social reproduction through a disinvestment in social security. Next.
Okay, just want to do a quick pause. Does anyone, if you have questions about anything I just said about homonormativity, let me know in the chat. But otherwise, we're going to keep going.
To the facilitation of an upward redistribution of wealth and the public financing of businesses, such disinvestment takes the form of austerity measures, including to the cuts in social services and welfare provisions that we've become really familiar with in the UK over this decade. Duggan emphasises that this occurs alongside the political rhetoric that caring labour, including supporting disabled persons, childcare and adult social care, is a personal responsibility of families rather than that of the state.
Oh!
With this disinvestment, the cost of...
One of the reasons they want to abolish the nuclear family is that they believe that care exists in the privatized nuclear household. What that means is you are relegated to whatever resources your family has in terms of money, in terms of insurance, and that contributes to the social reproduction of capitalism, because they believe the social reproduction of capitalism takes place in the nuclear family, where children are raised with capitalist values. This is why they want to queer the nuclear family. It's one of the reasons they want to queer the nuclear family, so that we're not raising children with capitalist values that privatizes care within the nuclear family. What they're saying, and taking it out of the bounds of the state, because the state's not paying for it. Let me know if there are questions.
Alongside the political rhetoric that caring labour, including supporting disabled persons, childcare and adult social care, is a personal responsibility of families rather than that of the state. With this disinvestment, the costs of socially reproductive labour, both financial and of socially necessary labour time, are left to individual families and households to pick up the fiscal slack. Duggan clearly intends for us to consider this material context, undergirding her polemical message that, quote, we get married in the military, then we go home and cook dinner forever, end quote. While Duggan considers the privatization of caring labour through state recognition of gay marriage as the form of queer relationality par excellence, her comments are suggestive that the privatisation of such labour are indeed the conditions of possibility for privatised state-sanctioned gay marriage. She refrains from developing an analysis of the modes of caring labour undertaken within and to sustain queer relations.
Hang on. Hang on. Hang on. You guys are going to love this. Hang on. Hang on. God, the whole right wing is acting like they knew this gay guy who died when they didn't. It's so fucking sad. It's so fucking pathetic. So, just so you guys all know, according to James Lindsay, we are all CCP paid trolls. James tweeted, "Okay, so tonight we learned the CCP influence trolls support woke right initiatives. That's data." His evidence, apparently, is screenshots of his own tweets from one person who most of us probably haven't heard of. And then he retweeted someone that said, Nick Fuentes and many of his associates praised the CCP for being ethno-nationalist for Han Chinese people. So now, not only are you guys all in a cult, according to James Lindsay, because my show is called The Cult, not only are you guys all snowed by an evil narcissist sociopath, not only are you guys all Gnostic, because he said that all of my followers are engaging in Gnosticism, you are all now trolls of the CCP, according to James. Yeah, where the fuck's my CCP check? Where's my CCP check, James? Where's my CCP money? Yeah, where's our check? We're all underpaid. The Gnostic CCP, the 1 cent army. We'll be waiting for our money. In the meantime, we'll be studying communism. In the meantime, we'll be studying queer theory. Yeah, I don't get paid. I wish I got paid for this. I get paid when you guys see fit to pay me. That's it.
So while arguments that gay marriage reassures a key institution of capitalist society...
Hang on. Oh, shit. We're going to have to go back and listen to that. Anytime I hear key institution in capitalist society, I'm like, what? How is James able to be on X tweeting things literally every single hour of every single day? Does he not have a wife? Or no, he does have a wife. He has no life, though. He needs to go out and touch grass is what he needs to do. James is unhinged. And he's also getting paid by Israel. That's really why he's doing it. But
that the privatization of such labour are indeed the conditions of possibility for privatised state-sanctioned gay marriage, she refrains from developing an analysis of the modes of caring labour undertaken within and to sustain queer relational modes. So while arguments that gay marriage reassures a key institution of capitalist society are numerous, a theorisation of the...
What did it just say? What did I say to you guys earlier? Queer Marxists do not support gay marriage. At all. This is something that really could have been helpful 10 years ago if conservatives had understood this, if they'd bothered to research their enemy. Queer Marxists do not support gay marriage. They just said gay marriage is a key institution of capitalism. Gay marriage upholds capitalism. It encourages people to be in a monogamous relationship with one partner. Again, listen.
Conditions of possibility for privatised state-sanctioned gay marriage, she refrains from developing an analysis of the modes of caring labour undertaken within and to sustain queer relational modes. So while arguments that gay marriage reassures a key institution of capitalist society are numerous, a theorization of the caring domestic and emotional labour we undertake to ensure our continuing existence as queer and trans subjects, and the historical transformation of the material conditions surrounding such labour within the context of neoliberal capitalism and the ascendancy of gay marriage as the legally recognised form of same-sex kinship is yet to be broached in queer or trans studies. Such theorization must consider our contemporary moment, where the daily lives of many LGBTQ people are marked by precarious work, both waged and unwaged, precarious housing, precarious healthcare, and precarious immigration status. Furthermore, despite the recent resurgence of social reproduction theory and Marxist feminism, the social reproduction of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer lives remains under-theorized in this.
Hang on. We got a question from someone I don't recognize. Just to confirm, the queer doctrine is a key variable in the type of Marxism well, currently today we are watching queer Marxism. Now, not all socialists and communists engage in queer Marxism. There are some socialist and communist groups that downright reject queer Marxism. For example, the Revolutionary Communists of America say flat out they don't believe queer Marxism is Marxism. So I'm not suggesting that every single socialist and communist group embraces this, but there is a very big percentage who do. So today we are focusing on queer Marxism. This is going to be more of a cultural issue related to Marxism. It's not about economics at all. But not everyone researches, not everyone actually adheres to this, but this is just what we're looking at today. Appreciate the question.
Context. I should probably say that I'm not going to go into huge detail about the Marxist feminist formulation of social reproduction because I'm kind of assuming you'll have some idea of it, and there's plenty of books out there to go and look at. But in brief, social reproduction. In really brief, literally 2 sentences. Social reproduction, to quote Barbara Lesser and Johanna Brenner, describes the activities and attitudes, behaviours and emotions, responsibilities and relationships directly involved in the maintenance of life on a daily basis, end quote. Marxist feminism conceptualizes socially reproductive...
I don't think that's a good definition, but we'll see what the next definition is. What do you make of self-proclaimed... Jackson Hinkle's not a real Marxist. I'm sorry. People need to start fucking ignoring Jackson Hinkle and the American Communist Party. It's not fucking real. I'm sorry. Like, I was just getting into an argument with someone yesterday who swore to me up and down. He's like, no, Carlin, this is real, and the American Communist Party and Jackson Hinkle are hugely influential. Have you seen their social media? And I was like, bro... like real leftists organized in the real world. And I have yet to hear from a single leftist that actually takes Jackson Hinkle seriously or Haz al-Din seriously. This is a social media scam. This is not real. So I don't even want to talk about it. Like I have yet to hear from any of the legitimate activists that are actually out there at their events that are actually promoted by the left. None of them believe that this is real. So yeah, it's a giant grift. It's a grift.
Labour as the work that reproduces workers and their labour power and capitalism,
Here it
the
is.
latter of which...
Here it is. Hang on. Getting a definition of social reproduction theory. Hang on. I want to record this. Social reproduction theory is the idea that social systems will reproduce themselves until they're disrupted. When it comes to Marxist feminism, what you're about to hear this person say is social reproduction is is what reproduces capitalism within the nuclear family. Listen.
And emotions, responsibilities and relationships directly involved in the maintenance of life on a daily basis, end quote. Marxist feminism conceptualizes socially reproductive labour as the work that reproduces workers and their labour power and capitalism, the latter of which is exchanged directly or either directly or indirectly with capitalist employers for wages. In Western capitalist society, this work has historically taken place within the domestic sphere of the nuclear heteronormative family, undertaken by women and or migrant women of colour. As the work of Silvia Federici and Sarah Farish shows, among others, the gendered, racialised division of labour within white, patriarchal capitalist society reproduces the feminised and racialised character of this work across the supposed divide of the global north and the global south, where women and feminised workers from the global south, that is workers of colour, are often responsible for the social reproduction of bodies in or from the global north. So while heterosexuality as a form of work has long been considered as part of Marxist feminism...
Hang on. on. I'm going to make sure that clip is safe. What it basically said is that social reproduction theory relates to the social reproduction of capitalist norms within the nuclear household, in which children in the nuclear household are raised to believe capitalist values, and they're raised by either women, as in mothers, or they're raised by migrant workers like nannies or something like that to believe these capitalist values. And the fact that mothers and underpaid like nannies do the work of raising the children in these in a way that socially reproduces capitalism, what they're saying is that work is undervalued because it's either low paid, as in the case of like migrant workers, or it's underpaid. It's completely not paid in the form of like motherhood. Let me know if you guys have questions. I'm kind of trying to get through this because people are dwindling.
Analysis. The consideration of queer sexualities has been sidelined in the canon of Marxist feminism. Next to some brief remarks on queer sexualities by Silvia Federici and Kathy Weeks is the political demands and praxis of Wages Due Lesbians, an international group who are part of the Wages for Housework movement. And furthermore, the arguments and praxis of the gay liberation movement for the abolition of the nuclear family, for gay communalism and interdependency. There are also the struggles of LGBTQI parents today. So
yes, they believe that motherhood should be paid labor because they are raising the next generation of workers that will be oppressed under capitalism. Yep.
For child custody and the broader challenges for reproductive justice, including issues such as access to abortions, for fertility treatment for and challenging the forced sterilization of trans people of various genders, and the recognition of queer and trans family forms in excess of the monogamous nuclear family. Such challenges oppose
the recognition of queer and trans family forms that are not monogamous. Listen again.
Various genders, and the recognition of queer and trans family forms in excess of the monogamous nuclear family.
The monogamous nuclear family is considered to be homonormative. If they are going to queer the nuclear family, it is not going to be in a monogamous relationship. That's where polyamory comes in. Not all people who are polyamorous are socialists. I absolutely know people who are not socialists who are polyamorous, but everyone who but there's a higher propensity of queer Marxists to be polyamorous because that queers the nuclear family. Monogamous relationships are heteronormative, whereas hetero and homonormative, whereas polyamorous relationships are queer.
Such challenges oppose the virulent homophobia, transphobia, whorephobia, ableism and racism that has been deployed to shore up the boundaries of the nuclear family across the 20th century and that find new articulations in the current neo-fascist period. Indeed, the reproduction of the lives of sexual and gender deviants against the familial norms of capitalist society raises questions around the valuation of our lives by capital itself, which must be considered next to our assertion as LGBT rights-bearing subjects into systems of wage labour. I've written about that bit elsewhere.
I am whorophobic.
So, this paper, if I can get to it, will argue queer and trans world-making.
Side note, I've become extremely horophobic lately. Like, I've never liked porn. I've never liked women who did porn. There was a time in my life when I was around women who did porn and I didn't like it. Like, I have an absolute aversion. And maybe I'm harder on the women that I am on the men, but like, no, I think men who do porn are gross too. Like, I do. I don't run into as many men that do porn as I run into women who do porn, because like women who do porn online are ubiquitous. I feel like I'm surrounded by them and I'm like, you're fucking gross. Like, I'm not a prude about sex. I'm really, really not a prude about sex. I'm not one of those people that says you should stay a virgin until you're married. I actually think that's a really bad idea. I think you should make sure you have sexual chemistry with the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. I'm not saying you need to whore yourself out, but like, if you love someone and you're going to marry them, like, you need to make sure that that situation is taken care of, because not everyone has sexual chemistry. It's just the way it goes. And you don't want to be like on your wedding night finding out that you're going to be disappointed for the rest of your life. And I'm sorry, virgins know when they're disappointed too. And so anyway, I'm not prudish about sex at all, but like, I'm really starting to have an aversion to like whores on the internet. Like, I just like these OnlyFans girls or like pretty much any woman that's selling sex on the internet. And I'm not talking about a photo here or there. I posted photos just for fun to like, you know, get people to or whatever. I'm not really like posting pictures anymore because I'm like, I've kind of moved on from that whole thing. But like, none of my pictures were naked. The most my picture shows with like a shoulder and maybe some cleavage. And I'm like, you're not seeing anything more than you would if I was in a bathing suit. I'm not talking about having an OnlyFans or anything like that. That's fucking gross, man. That's gross. And all of these women just like their energy is just like, I don't like, you're a whore. I don't want to be around you. And then they all want to deny that they're whores. And I'm like, no, you're a whore. Like, really? Like, you did porn? Like, no, gross.
Political work, struggle, and survival I have
less of a problem with like repentant whores who were like, yeah, I was young and mistakes were made. Okay, I can understand that. Sometimes people make mistakes in college. Okay, I can understand that. But like, if you're just a completely like unrepentant whore, where you want to make excuses, like, here's what I can't stand. I know I'm going on a sidetrack here, but it's my show. I'll do what I want. Like, I can't stand women who are like, I had all these mental health issues and that's why I had to get gangbanged. I'm like, no, bitch. A lot of us have mental health issues. A lot of us struggled growing up. A lot of us have problems, okay? Not all of us made hardcore porn as a result. But the people who are like, yeah, maybe that wasn't my best idea and I would do things differently, I can tolerate people who are like, yeah, you know what? Mistakes were made. I fucked up. I shouldn't have done that. I wish I hadn't done that. I wouldn't do it now if I had the choice again. Like, that's different. That's like a repentant whore. But like a completely like, I had all these mental health issues growing up and I had ADHD and I had to go do porn because of it. Like, go fuck yourself. Or go get fucked by 15 other guys. I don't really care, but I don't want to be around you because you are a whore.
People argue, queer and trans lawmaking, political struggle and survival have depended upon practices of socially reproductive labour oriented towards queer and trans bodies. This in turn necessitates an expansion of the...
Allison! Thank you for reminding me it's Thursday night. You know what, Allison? I'm going to make sure that we're done by your movie night. And I want to encourage everyone in the supporter Discord to go join Allison's movie night. I've never seen Barbarella. Maybe I'll pop in. I honestly forgot it was Thursday. I thought it was Wednesday for some reason. So Allison is hosting a movie night tonight in the supporter Discord. They're going to be watching Barbarella at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And if you want to go and watch a vintage movie, I think it's going to be a great... Speaking of whores, I think it's going to be a great... I think it's going to be a great movie to watch, so make sure you check in with Honest Dog Allison in the supporter Discord at 9 p.m. and go watch Barbarella.
Concept of socially reproductive labour. To argue that our lives as LGBTQ persons inhabiting varied familial and community formations within a queer and trans socius affected by our material, cultural, social and legal positions within capitalist society is to give socially reproductive labour a different orientation to the reproduction of labour power in a Marxist sense for capital's consumption. If our labour power has been historically devalued by capital, as queers, women, people of colour, migrant workers, trans people, disabled people, sex workers, working within a racialised and gender division of labour, such a conception decenters capital's demand for the labour power we carry within us. Yet this conception must maintain an eye on capital's incorporation and transformation of such bodies and the positions of such bodies in the labour market and capitalist society. Homonormativity and Jasper Pure's concept of homonationalism could be argued as synonyms for the varied incorporations of such bodies into national labour markets with respect to a gendered and racialised division of labour. So this paper is going to first consider work within queer Marxism and trans studies that begin to address socially reproductive labour from a queer perspective. I'm then going to consider some work from black feminism and then in more detail LGBTQ activism that's been sidelined within this canon of socially reproductive theory and Marxist feminism, building upon this to provide a broader conceptualisation of trans and queer social reproduction. Okay. So queering social reproduction. Queer Marxism, trans studies, and queer studies have more broadly made suggestions towards forms, and queer studies more broadly, have made suggestions towards forms of socially reproductive labour that reproduce queer and trans lives, workers, and worlds. Miranda Joseph and Meg Wessling have varyingly argued that the concept of socially reproductive labour must be expanded to include the work that enables queer and trans subjectivities and lives. Work such as non-procreative sex, public sex, and the activities that give pleasure, satisfy, and enable the expression of queer and trans bodies. Meg Wessling and Jane Ward's work has emphasised the labour of gender itself. Jane Ward in particular so Meg Wessling
I think there's actually a lot of good stuff in this. I'm zoning out right now. I'm zoning out. So I think we're going to call it there. There's going to be a movie in about 20 minutes in the supporter Discord. I think that's a good 300th episode. Maybe not the full marathon, but that's all right. And I'm just zoning out, honestly. I'm like, I know they're saying a lot of stuff that I want to pay attention to. I can't focus anymore. Maybe it's because I've had half a bottle of champagne. So, you know what? We're going to call it a day, guys. Thank you to everyone who joined me for the 300th episode of the show. I really appreciate it. As a reminder, if you want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, head over to the Substack, which is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. Sign up for a membership of $8 a month or $80 a year. Read the latest article on how James Lindsay is actually engaging in Marxist strategies while accusing everyone else of being a Marxist. And I point out how James, being funded by Israel, is engaging in repressive tolerance to stifle any ideas that are not convenient to his narrative. As a reminder, we will be watching Candace Owens's talk with the USS Liberty survivor tomorrow for happy hour. That's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I'm really looking forward to that interview. It looks like a great chat. That's a really controversial subject, and I think that from what I've seen, and listen, I have problems with Candace Owens, but she seems to have done a good job on this. So so we're gonna watch Candace Owens talk with the USS Liberty survivor. We're gonna find out more about that. We're gonna find out why James is so upset over and having a massive fucking hissy fit, because no one is allowed to talk about topics that James doesn't personally approve of. People are saying it's really good. I'm really looking forward to it. Congratulations to Purple Melbourne for sticking around through the whole show. That's a really impressive feat for day one. We hope you guys come back. Of course, we will do Socialism Saturday on Saturday at 6 p.m., where we will be watching the Real Radical Revolutionary Socialist Left. And until then, guys, I take my leave. I take my leave of all of you. All right, guys, have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.